American Sunrise Early Edition, President Trump is ready to take a bite out of crime. He'll unveil the details of his plan to make D.C. streets safer and cleaner at a news conference later this morning. Going from streets to borders, President Trump has given the Pentagon the green light to use the military to attack Latin American drug and murder cartels. But when and how will it happen? In hopes of ending war, a Friday summit has been set in Alaska between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, but Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is hoping to get involved too. Ignore the problem and maybe it will go away. That seems to have been Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's strategy when asked about his state's ridiculous and notorious gerrymandering. You'll see what I mean. And they lied again. In what's becoming an even more blatant trend than ever, the mainstream media publishes a slur on Vice President J.D. Vance and then only quietly corrects it. Hey, if it works in Gaza, why not try it in Ohio? American Sunrise Early Edition begins now.
Welcome to American Sunrise Early Edition. The show where faith, freedom, and the values that built this nation take center stage.
Your good deeds and bad deeds. That's how we're going to judge you.
Join host Jake Novak as he breaks down the stories that matter.
We will be letting the public know regularly what we have found.
American Sunrise Early Edition with your host, Jake Novak, starts now.
Welcome to American Sunrise, a new week here in American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a busy day to get started for the new week, so I hope you got enough rest over the weekend. Helping us to do all of that, helping us to tackle it, is Colonel Rob Maness, Air Force, U.S. Air Force retired Colonel Rob Maness, also the host of the Rob Maness Show. And let's start with this running story that you've been coming on this program for a while to talk about. That is, of course, the Russia and Ukraine war. We've got this summit set up on Friday. Colonel, I have to ask you, am I a sucker to say that something feels different about this summit? Something feels different now. I'm not expecting peace to break out and everyone to start singing Kumbaya. Don't get me wrong, but there's something significant. I feel like there's a significant change about to come on the horizon. How about you?
Oh, I do too, Jake. Look, I've said all along that the way this will work is eventually President Trump will sit down face to face with President Putin. The piece that surprises me and pleases me, and I hope it does happen, is the part about pulling President Zelensky in to these talks. I don't think the president would have ever mentioned that if he wasn't hopeful that they were close to some type of a deal, at least a ceasefire deal, and maybe freeze the lines during the ceasefire while talks continue to take place. But the fact the president is meeting face-to-face with Putin is a very promising development. And as you said, let's keep our expectations level and not get overly excited about this. Because, look, if you've ever watched an interview with President Putin, go look at the Tucker Carlson interview. You'll see he's very bureaucratic. He's very rules-oriented when it comes to discussing things and laying out his plans and ideas and those kind of things. So this is the beginning of the end, in my view.
Well, I certainly hope you're right. I just get that feeling something has changed, and I can't put my finger on it, but let's see what happens on Friday. Speaking of change, we're just under 3 hours away from President Trump's news conference, where he will detail plans for cleaning up crime and dirt and other things on the streets of Washington, D.C. Colonel, I'm going to guess you're as uneasy as I am about bringing in federal agents, even National Guard troops, although it looks like this is going to be an FBI situation. But I'm sure you're probably as uneasy as I am about this in most cases. But this is the District of Columbia, and I feel like that's a little bit of a different story. This isn't like the streets of New York or Los Angeles or a small town. This is, as they say, the federal city.
It is the federal city, and it's constitutionally designated as such. And look, the home rule law has failed, Jake. It's an utter failure. The place is a disgrace, and it's an embarrassment to the American people. And, one of the things the president could do is declare that concealed carry permit holders from around the country could now carry concealed. I hate to go all Second Amendment advocate on you, but that's the one place that I can't even carry an empty magazine accidentally in a suitcase in this country where I would get arrested and put in prison for up to 10 years. So that's one of the things that he could do very easily that doesn't involve federal troops. But home rule's got to end. The Congress needs to take this back over, give responsibility to the executive branch of the federal government, and let's get on with it. And the president can appoint somebody to be in charge of the city and set up a new civilian government that will actually work for the people. And let's talk about giving most of that territory back to the state of Maryland, like we did to Virginia, which works just fine. I'll say it one more time. That way, the people that live there that vote can vote in Maryland, and they'll actually have state representation. We can narrow the territory down to a very small area where it only involves elected officials for the most part that live there, and they vote in their home states anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's about accountability and the fact that we as taxpayers, all of us watching, you might say, well, I don't live in D.C., and like just the way you say maybe I don't live in New York or other cities that have issues. But you are. You really are. You're a federal taxpayer, which means you're really funding all of this. And we have more of a say in what happens in D.C. than we do some other part of the country. All right, now to a different kind of crime. We got going into the weekend a really interesting report that's been confirmed by a number of sources I trust, that President Trump has indeed authorized the Pentagon to use our armed forces to fight the Latin American drug and murder cartels. I'm cheering this, but what's your take on this?
I've been advocating for this for years now, Jake. I've always said we should pull especially our special operations capability forces back to the United States from overseas where they're engaged in unnecessary combat. Put them on our southern border. Many of the installations already exist down there, and let's get them to work ripping apart these narco-terrorist cartels that really are not just controlling Mexico, but they control all the lines of communication across that terrain into and out of the United States of America. That's how they continue to be able to do things like deliver massive amounts of fentanyl that kills up to 100,000 Americans a year, continues to this day. We would not accept that level of casualty on any battlefield in any war at any time in our country's history. It's time to stop accepting it now. Our special operations forces are very capable of finding where these targets are, destroying these targets, and making these cartels pay a price if they continue to traffic humans, traffic drugs, and traffic violence into this country.
Yeah, and these cartels are tough, but going up against the U.S. military, they're not going to be so tough. That's one thing. But, I want to dig into this just a little bit more. There's a couple of points I want to make here. You've got a lot of people here in this country, some of whom just misguided, some of whom are just, not being fair, who are all upset about ICE agents having to wear masks and complaining about that. Of course, my answer to that is that they're really not like playing cops and robbers. Our ICE agents are basically soldiers fighting an invading army, and soldiers have been wearing masks for millennia. Look it up. Okay, that's one thing. But the second thing is, and I love to refer to movies here because when people watch movies and they remember them. There was a great Tom Clancy book, Clear and Present Danger. It was a pretty good movie adaptation of it. And the president in that movie actually does authorize the military to go and attack the drug cartels. But unlike President Trump, they keep it a secret. Again, this is something I say all the time to a lot of the critics of President Trump. You can love him or hate him, and you can be for or against his policies. But this idea that he's a dictator and he's not accountable is ludicrous. He's the most accountable president we've ever had. I think the fact that he's putting this above board and I think it's going to be a major announcement, but the fact that they're not keeping it a secret for sure, I think that's really helpful. We need to know that this isn't some kind of clandestine CIA operation.
Yeah, I think the administration under his direction keeps the things secret that need to be kept secret and is openly transparent 1,000 times over on the things that shouldn't be kept secret. And you're exactly right. That's a good point. People will think that this is some kind of CIA covert operation, and it doesn't need to be. Look, this is about defending the United States of America, especially on our southern border, and that's what our American armed forces are for. I like the idea of changing the name of the Department of Defense back to the Department of War, because that's what they do. That's what we do with the men and women in uniform here. And you mentioned ICE and the ICE agencies. Those warriors are American heroes. It's a shame that they have to cover their faces to protect themselves from the people that have infiltrated this country and are operating as subversives and effectively a fifth column in our own country. We need to end that. One way to end that is to cross over that border and start destroying cartel targets. Do we have to go after targets that are in built-up areas? No. A lot of their operations are out in the hinterlands, in the jungles, and the deserts, and the mountains, and we have the intelligence capabilities. I'm sure we already know where most of the targets we want to hit are, and we need to start taking them out so that we will end this need for our ICE agents to cover their faces, because the people that are inside the country will get rolled up as well, or they'll leave on their own because they know their time is limited.
Yeah. Let me see, Colonel. What's another country that's allied with America that has a hostile neighbor with paramilitary forces just over the border? Oh, yeah, Israel. I did want to squeeze one question in about that because, of course, over the last few days, we've heard that the Israeli government wants to at least temporarily take over all of Gaza, because if they don't, those paramilitary Hamas terrorists will be able to roam free. Why is this such a controversial idea, Colonel?
Well, it's become controversial in the United States because somebody's spreading the word that the United States has signed up to do the occupation because the Israelis aren't capable of doing it on their own. And a lot of people have used the false trope that the Israelis started the war with Iran knowing they couldn't finish it and they needed the United States to come in and hit those nuclear targets, which had been on President Trump's radar since his first administration, quite frankly, and he had made noises about that. So now, look, I'm not an advocate of the United States going to any foreign territory and occupying ground, and the Israeli government needs to make a really good decision here and make sure that they have a long-term capability to do that occupation if they're going to occupy the entire territory. And that includes a system of government, at least temporarily, until they can find somebody that's from that area that can run a civilized government without turning into an armed force that continuously attacks and commits atrocities on Jewish people and the Israeli government just because they don't think they have a right to exist and they want to annihilate them from the face of the earth. That's the situation the Israeli government is facing, and I don't blame them. I've long called for their objectives to be unconditional surrender of Hamas or complete annihilation and eradication from that territory. And unfortunately, they built so many hundreds of miles of tunnels and infrastructure under the ground using materials, by the way, that countries like the United States provided with concrete and those kinds of things, which is despicable. But the Israelis have had to face that. And it looks like it's coming down to, if they're not going to surrender, the Israeli government's going to have to occupy the territory and completely eradicate them that way.
Yeah, well, it's up to Hamas how long that occupation would last. That's really the answer. Colonel Rob Maness, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week.
Thank you, Jake.
Coming up, Meet the Press hostess Christine Welker almost did her job correctly when interviewing Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, but in the end, it was hard to decide which one of them is more dedicated to misinformation. You'll see for yourself. And what do New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani and the old sitcom Friends have in common? It's not exactly something to be proud of for anyone involved. American Sunrise and Emily Finn will be right back. American Sunrise Early Edition. We're keeping going. live shot of the White House where at 10 a.m. Eastern time, you're going to be able to see President Trump outlining his plan to fight crime in Washington, D.C. Don't be derailed by these little piss ants who are talking about how, crime isn't up in D.C. We're looking at all the numbers. No, that's not what's going on. There's crime, especially juvenile crime, is out of control. And it doesn't matter whether it's up compared to last year or the year before. It's not at an acceptable level for a city that all of us as federal taxpayers are funding, period. Anyway, let's see what President Trump has to say about fighting it at 10 a.m. Eastern. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Special welcome to those of you on the Getter and the Rumble chats who are watching on those platforms. Joining us now is Real America's Voice contributor Emily Finn. And Emily, let's play the, quote, if you were the mainstream media news host game, how would you follow up to this non-answer from Illinois Governor Jay Pritzker on Meet the Press yesterday? Watch this.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
Okay, Emily, kudos to Kristen Welker's producer for scripting that question. And boy, was that scripted. You could see she was reading it on them. She had no personal conviction in that question at all. She might have all been an AI bot. But she didn't press him after that dodge. I mean, he didn't answer the question. So how do you not let Pritzker get away with that not answer, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise at all. But I mean, what was surprising is that she even asked that question in the first place on that network. That's something that you would see here. And we would absolutely do the follow-up questions at Real America's Voice. I would ask him, Governor Pritzker, why are you distracting from answering this question? You have to address the hypocrisy and acknowledge that this is a problem on both sides. So I think that she really should have followed up with that one, Jake. It was pretty blatant that she let him get away with it.
Yeah, this would have been my follow-up. Governor Pritzker, don't you think it would be better if you're really upset about what's going on in Texas to get another Democrat governor from a state that isn't ridiculously gerrymandered like yours? Shouldn't you step down? Isn't this just about you wanting to be the president and the fact that you're deluded into thinking the DNC will allow you to do that? You're really the guy in the barrel today. That's who you are, JB, but that's what I would have said. Okay, now, here in New York, it looks like Andrew Cuomo, speaking of Democrat governors or former Democrat governors, is finally breaking through, at least with his messaging, in the mayoral battle with Zohran Mamdani. Cuomo found out recently that Mamdani, son of multimillionaire parents and the owner of extensive real estate both here and in Africa, is living in a spacious Astoria apartment, which is a hot neighborhood in New York, by the way, for just $2,300 a month, he and his wife. That's not a lot here in New York, by the way, for those of you who don't know how our rents are. And Cuomo is noting that this is a blatant abuse of the system set up decades ago to protect the poor in their neighborhoods. Now, this reminds me of the TV show Friends, which is probably for you, Emily, an old show. But for me, I was your age when that show was airing. If you remember, in that show, they lived in a big apartment. Finally, at the end of the show, they admitted, oh, yeah, this was a rent control apartment because it made no sense for people, even 3 roommates, to be able to live in such a large apartment in New York City and afford it. Zohran Mamdani is a guy scamming the system, just like those upper middle class rich kids on Friends. I know they're make-believe characters. They also were scamming the system. And this might actually resonate. I think people of all ages can see that this is not right.
At least the cast of Friends seemed like really good people that wouldn't try to destroy New York City like Mamdani is. I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting to see that Cuomo is kind of pushing ahead in the polls and pushing ahead with his messaging, like you said. But this is Andrew Cuomo that we're talking about. I mean, how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic in New York should be disqualifying as it is. It's really interesting that you bring all of this up, Jake, because I saw his post on X. He's been going really hard against Mamdani recently, and it seems like the gloves are clearly off. I'm not sure if you saw that as well, but he welcomed him to the heavyweight bout. He said, "This is a 2-man race. You look tired already." I mean, cringe. I think this is about to get ugly in New York, Jake.
Yeah, my only hope is that Cuomo has done his contribution to this race, letting people know about this rent control thing, making it into an issue, and that maybe Curtis Lewa will come in now and win that race, or somebody like that, somebody else. I agree with you. Cuomo certainly doesn't feel like the answer. Emily Finn, thanks for joining us. We're going to see you again tomorrow and every day this week. And we hope that you have a good time in the times when you're not working, which is probably never. But thanks for joining us.
Always great to be here, Jake. See you tomorrow.
All right, question. Is the continued divide between President Trump, and the Federal Reserve putting us behind the curve again? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time, or are we looking to be going into a potential economic slowdown? And what does this mean for your savings? Consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just get some gold to keep in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text America to the number 989898. Again, text America to 989898. Consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. That way, if the Fed can't stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Coming up, spoiler alert, the folks at Dodge don't actually like making EVs. Who would, when your whole brand is all about muscle cars like this for decades? I'll have some candid information about what Dodge is doing about it when American Sunrise Early Edition and Moving America come right back. Look at that, New York City, start of the week. Got a little mid-'80s groove going there right now. I would start singing, but I don't know all the words correctly. You know the song. Anyway, let's take a look at where the markets are going to begin today here as we start our Monday on American Sunrise Early Edition. And it's looking strong, really close to all-time highs on the S&P 500, at an all-time high on the NASDAQ. The Dow is opening higher. Gold is down just for now, but still, look at that, $3,400 an ounce. We're still very close to all-time highs there. And look at that number on crude oil. We're at the just barely $63 a barrel mark, historic low there. Now let's take a look at Bitcoin, because it had a jump over the weekend and a jump overnight, and there it is, 120,700. So we're right back into that higher window. We broke below 117 last week. We stayed there all week. And then over the weekend, we got as high this morning, a little bit was at 121, a little bit higher than this. So Bitcoin looking to break out a little bit higher right now as well. Hey, mission accomplished, everyone. As you know, I was going on and on all last week about how the mainstream media was absolutely dead set on leading their news for a couple of days with how terrible the economy was. Now, they weren't predicting a downturn. They were saying we were already in a downturn, which was, of course, the fatal flaw in that reporting. They actually chose the same week when we got a report that the GDP grew by 3%, which is a very strong number. Anything higher than 2% is higher than the normal here in this country. And they decided to continue doing this. And they made a huge mistake because not only did the GDP grow, but the markets actually gained for the week, thanks to some strong individual earnings reports from a number of companies and on and on. So shows like this and you, people like you, force the mainstream media to go with headlines like this one. Look at this headline now. Hey, there are people who predict recessions coming around the corner all the time. That's something that people do. That's their thing. I'm more into the this is what's going on right now job. That's really the job that I put upon myself. Not, hey, telling you that things right now are different from what they are. Again, there could always be a downturn around the corner. Don't believe anyone who says we're never going to have a downturn in the economy. However, also don't believe people that say we're in a gloom and doom situation right now because we are simply not there right now. And I'm really glad, at least for today, the mainstream media has had to quit that narrative. All right, this next story is so ridiculous, but it's also just so typical of the Chinese government that I have to report it to you. I also have to tell you it because Wall Street has to react. Get this. The Chinese government is saying that they're not sure they're going to allow NVIDIA, the big AI chip maker, to import its new H20 NVIDIA chips into the country because they say those chips could be used to spy on China. Are you kidding me? China, of course, almost all their technology is the result of its spying on us. This is a classic case of what do you call projection, turning things around. That's what China does to us. And of course, the chip industry has been highly regulated by both the Biden and the Trump administrations in what kind of chips they're allowed to sell China because China spies on us and steals our technology. Nice try, China. No one is buying it. But of course, NVIDIA has to respond to this and saying the same thing I am. That's ridiculous. Just amazing that a country that spies on everybody else for a living, which is basically what China does, is accusing someone else of doing it to them. That's rich. Okay, President Trump took a swipe at Nancy and Paul Pelosi over the weekend on his Truth social media platform. He said yesterday that, hey, Nancy Pelosi and her husband have beaten the geniuses on Wall Street. Their investments continue to beat the smarter hedge funds and on down the line. But by the way, again, this is something that he's basically accusing them of insider trading. Remember, members of Congress, especially senior members of Congress, often know about legislation and deals that are in the making before anyone else. And as the law stands now, they're allowed to trade on that information. Not you and me. We can go to jail for that. But they're allowed to do it. And so President Trump taking a swipe at them. Now, one of the reasons why he may have chosen yesterday to do this is because I noticed something really funny. By the way, if you want to invest like Nancy Pelosi, you can. There's an exchange-traded fund. That's when you buy into a basket of stocks. It's the Nancy Pelosi fund that someone has created. The Unusual Whales Group has created it. It goes by the ticker symbol NANC, like Nance, okay, NANC. And it is up. It's been up a lot over the last few months and last few years. And it closed at a 52-week high on Friday. So that might be why President Trump chose this weekend to take a swipe at Nancy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. This is Moving America, sponsored by Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Use promo code RAV for 10% off your first order. Artillery tea is all natural, whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated, and a portion of your purchase goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code RAV for 10% off your first order. Hey, Dodge CEO Matt McAleer, well, he's not a CEO, McAleer. He is the head of the Dodge division of Stellantis. I hate when companies give their division heads the CEO title. Public company has only one CEO position. I hate that. But all right, getting off of that for a second, because it's misleading. But McAleer is happy man. He's a happy man today. Why? Because, as he says, with the change in the administration about 7 months ago, in other words, President Trump took office. I don't know why he couldn't say that. He says a move back to gas-powered cars at Dodge is likely including a return to making a new V8 Dodge Charger using the Hellcat V8, by the way. Now, McAleer is making these comments. He made it in an interview going into the weekend. Dodge is a muscle car brand, also the Dodge Ram truck brand. They don't want to make electric cars. The fact that the Dodge Charger right now is an EV was something that a lot of marketers could have told you years ago wouldn't work. And guess what? It's not. Okay, did you ever wonder if you've parked your car in a safe place? Maybe it isn't the place you should be worried about, but the actual car itself. The latest data is out on which cars are most likely to be stolen in America today. And number one with the bullet is the Chevy Camaro ZL1. It is 39 times more likely to be stolen than the average car. Coming in a distant second is the Acura TLX, which is 20 times more likely to be pinched. Now, in case you were wondering, EVs have a much lower average theft rate, I guess because they're not too cool and nobody wants to steal them. Sorry, I had to take that shot. Okay, you may remember I told you last month about how the state of Connecticut, of all states, is preparing to crack down on slow drivers in the left lanes of major highways. No joke, this isn't just about wanting to get places in a hurry. Slow drivers in the left lane are a major, major cause of accidents on highways because people swerve around them, they get angry, they lose focus. They are a serious, serious accident magnet. But in Connecticut, all you have to worry about when that law goes into effect is getting a ticket. But in Louisiana right now, they're going much, much tougher on you slowpokes in the left lane. If you are a repeat offender going just even 1 mile below the speed limit, you could get jail time. All right, and that's getting serious. Hey, you might think that that is too severe, but I'm telling you, there are a lot of deaths on the highways probably every day because of people like this. So maybe Louisiana is on the cutting edge right now. Okay, you know that tariffs are presenting challenges to the major auto companies all over the world. But it turns out toy cars are being affected too. That includes Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels are made mostly in Malaysia right now, and Malaysia is the subject of a 19% tariff. Now, here's something that you may not know. Hot Wheels actually right now sell for just about the same exact prices they did when they first came on the market in 1968. No, I'm not adjusting for inflation. It's the same list price as it was 57 years ago. That's really impressive. They're warning that they may have to raise their prices a little bit, but I have a feeling if they've kept the list price the same this long, they're probably going to continue to do it. Hey, I got some Hot Wheels on the set right now. I always keep them here. I would hate to see the prices go up. By the way, a great toy to stimulate your young child's imagination. No video game. Hot Wheels are still a great gift to get your kids. Okay, coming up, Oklahoma is jumping at the chance to make some big changes in its schools thanks to the great unshackling of the Department of Education. I'll have the details on that. And if you still want to defend the old education establishment and the teachers' unions, wait until you hear what one huge union is doing to the truth about the Holocaust. Do these people have no shame? American Sunrise Early Edition will be right back. It's Monday, August 11th. Here are this morning's top stories. President Trump is ready to take a bite out of crime. He'll unveil the details of his plan to make D.C. streets safer and cleaner at a news conference later this morning. Going from streets to borders, President Trump has given the Pentagon the green light to use the military to attack Latin American drug cartels. But when and how will it happen? In hopes of ending a war, a Friday summit has been set in Alaska between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is hoping to get involved too. And one state is jumping at the chance to make big changes to its education system now that the Trump team has taken off some of those federal shackles. American Sunrise Early Edition continues now. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak, again counting down about 2.5 hours, a little bit less than that, to President Trump's news conference where he's going to unveil and discuss the details of his crime-fighting plan in D.C. Of course, you'll see that right here on Real America's Voice. So many other stories in the mix right now. But I wanted to get to something that a lot of us are thinking about right now, which is the beginning of school. Sorry, kids, if you're watching. I know the school's starting again, but parents, of course, we're all thinking about it as school is about to begin. And joining us right now is Oklahoma Schools Chief Ryan Walters. I know he's got an official title, so I like to call him Schools Chief. That's just that's, by the way, that's what we call the head of the schools in New York. So that's a New York thing, but I like that title. Anyway, Ryan, I want to get right to your news because Oklahoma is going to be eliminating some testing. Is that correct?
That's correct. You know, with the new Trump administration bringing power back to the states, one of the things we asked them about was, we've had all these federal testing requirements that end up being a nightmare for parents. Kids hate them. The teachers say, hey, we already collect a lot of this information. And we said, well, what's a better way of doing it? And we said, what about if we collect information in real time? So that way you know how your students are performing throughout the year, not just at the end of the year. Then you turn in all that information so parents can see how the schools are performing. And this keeps us from this federal overreach of dictating to the state what our testing models will look like. And so we went to the Trump administration, they were all for it. And we go, wow, this is a lot easier than under Joe Biden that wanted no part of it. They wanted all the federal power. They wanted to dictate from the federal government what kind of testing would be, what kind of curriculum there would be. And the Trump administration goes, great, more power to you. So we were very excited for this announcement.
Yeah, and listen, for those of you who know this better than I do, the whole idea of teaching to a test is so anti-intellectual, and it makes kids hate learning. And it also, in a lot of cases, is a way that they can insert politics and stuff that really isn't needed. I mean, some of the best schools out there have long ago banned politics and gossip from the schools. I mean, honestly, this is a long time coming. I am not a fan of the standardized testing. I understand that there are some good points behind it. You want to see if the schools are doing their job. But honestly, at the schools that are really failing, the fact that they're not teaching to a test, that's the least of their problems. Ryan, before people get up in arms, though, about the fact that states like yours are going against the educational establishment and what the teachers' unions want, I want to look for a second at something that happened that hardly anyone has covered. The National Education Association, the NEA, which is the second largest teachers union in America, they come out with their suggested curricula. And in their new suggestion for their World War II history unit, they have erased the word Jews from learning about the Holocaust. Now, look, there were a lot of people killed during the Holocaust who weren't Jewish, but still, the overwhelming majority were Jews. And obviously that was the major impetus. I mean, these are the people that we want to trust teaching our kids. There's no good reason to erase that other than some kind of crazy political agenda. I'm not even sure I want to know what it is.
It's because they hate America and they hate America's allies. I mean, this is pure anti-Semitism. I mean, just the sickening nature of you've had 6 million Jews exterminated in the Holocaust. And you've got the NEA that go, yeah, we shouldn't talk about that part of it. I mean, that just shows you it is because of their hatred for America and they're pushing against America. Can't be the good guy in any story. Israel can't be the good guy in any story. The Jews can't be the good guy in any story that the NEA wants your kids to know because they want to indoctrinate your kids. They don't want them to be proud of this country. They don't want them to be proud of America's allies. It is absolutely sick the agenda that the NEA, the National Teachers Unions, have tried to push on your kids. I thank God for President Trump every day for eliminating the Federal Department of Education, because that was their apparatus to force this into your schools. But we have got to continue this fight against the teachers unions. Guys, they're after the kids. They're trying to destroy the country. We have to stand firm against them.
All right, now here's another story that I don't think got any national attention other than on my program, and I've been wanting to ask you about it since I saw it early last week. The state of New Hampshire. Now, for those of you who don't know your geography, talk about American schooling. That's not a southern state, for those of you who aren't sure. The state of New Hampshire expanded its school voucher program to include people who make a little bit more money, being are now eligible to use some state money to help educate their kids any way they see fit. And it was immediately oversubscribed. In other words, it sold out right away. Now, for those people who say school vouchers are all about southern red states trying to take taxpayer money so they can fund their church schools or whatever, this story really debunks that. I promise you, the people of New Hampshire aren't going to send their kids to some 3-room schoolhouse in a church with the school voucher money. I mean, this is silly. I think this really absolutely should bolster your argument in Oklahoma and in other states like it that are saying, yes, figure it out. We all want this. This isn't about religious fanaticism. This is just about wanting the best for our kids.
That's right. I mean, school choice, like so many other Make America First initiatives, actually benefit everybody. You know, and it's like, hey, leftists, even though you don't like our policies, they actually benefit you too. So we want you to choose for your kids the best school choice option. We want your kids to be able to learn. So here's the reality. School choice helps everybody. It really is, left, right, or center. It would help. It's a policy that helps kids, but the radical left wants to keep power and indoctrinate so bad. They fight these type of policies, but truly President Trump has brought this to the forefront of, guys, red state, blue state, doesn't matter. You should have parents involved in their kids' education. The more that you involve them through school choice, the more they will engage, the more that they will drive these decisions for their kids. And this is a great testament here. It truly is a universal principle that parents should be in charge of their kids' education. And again, you see it being effective wherever it's tried.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is a geographic constant. Doesn't matter. It's not a Southern thing. It's not a Midwestern thing. For those of you who, there was an excellent documentary almost 15, 16 years ago called Waiting for Superman, which is all about urban families here in New York and places like it who are looking for some kind of relief for the fact that their kids are trapped in bad school systems. When I was doing local news here in New York, the saddest, but also in some ways the most endearing story that I covered every single year were the parents who used to stand outside in the cold weather in January all night. And yeah, a lot of them were single parents. It didn't matter, who were trying to get their kids into the limited number of magnet and charter schools in New York. This is a very, very big and important part of the American right to have an education for your kids. It doesn't have to be completely government run. If you believe in if you believe in public education and you believe in public schools, they don't all have to look the same. That's something that I think we can agree on. Now, let's get to something a little bit fun here, Ryan, because let's be honest. This might be the last time you and I can really talk about education in this country without it being also the football season. Now, all joking aside, I actually think that football programs in America's high schools and also in the colleges, in a lot of cases in the colleges, are really an important part of education. And for those of you laughing at me, don't forget, ever since the time of the ancient Greeks, my friends, we have known that physical education and physical activity is a part of education, is a part of developing our kids. We used to have phys ed required all the way through college in most schools. But in all seriousness, Ryan, how does the football culture of places like Oklahoma and Texas play into, in a positive way, to the education of our kids and our communities?
Look, I think it's huge. I was a coach, worked with young people, and there's something about the lessons that can be taught through athletics, through sports, the team concepts, the discipline. Young boys need that. They need to be able to have all of that funneled into positive activities. And what you see with this is a really great learning environment, the team concept, the discipline that comes with it. And again, we love football here in Oklahoma. It's a very exciting time. But again, I think it is so helpful. There's so many lessons that I was able to teach young people on a sports field that it's much tougher to do in a classroom. And so that's part of, you've really got an opportunity, and frankly, competition. Competition is great. Kids need to be able to learn to push themselves, to strive for hard, difficult goals, and they need to learn the lessons. What happens if they don't quite measure up to that goal? How do you get back? How do you go after that goal again? I think it's all incredibly important. We love football season here in Oklahoma. So yeah, we are stoked, ready for it to get started.
Yeah, and it's more than just the players on the team. It's the cheerleaders, it's the people who put together the concession stands. It's the way that a community comes together. When was the last time in any town in America, even a large town, you saw more than 50 or 60 people gathered together, all rooting for the same thing? This is a huge part of America. And it's, by the way, I mean, even, and this is one thing I'll say, even the Ivy League schools still all have football teams. And there's a reason for that. That's that one slice of Americana they still have. So anyway, I know that you got your season starting. Your high school season's probably starting next week. College games start in just about 2.5 weeks. So Ryan, you're excused from paying attention to me on the show for the next few months after that, but we hope to have you on anyway.
I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
All right, Ryan Walters, the Oklahoma Schools chief. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, coming up, the mainstream media misleads the public again and again, only offers a mild correction that almost no one saw. David Brody and we saw it, and we'll explain why kayaking in Ohio with the Vance family fits into all of this when American Sunrise Early Edition comes right back. I knew that was Dallas. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought 90% sure. And Control Room confirms that Dallas, Texas, on a morning, again, that's also a city that's about to be just consumed thinking about football, not just because of the Cowboys, but because of all their high school teams, and the college teams. If you are looking to get someone's attention in the states of Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana over the next few weeks, you better do it now, because football's starting, and then if you don't talk about football, they will not listen to you. Welcome back to American Sunrise Early Edition. I'm Jake Novak. Thanks for joining us. The Guardian newspaper in Britain started it all again. A story that came out just a little while ago, a few days ago, about how Vice President Vance's family had the Secret Service add water levels to a creek near their home. And that was, environmentalists were getting upset. How dare they do this? How dare they use it? Turns out it was false. The Vance family didn't have any conversation with the Secret Service about doing anything to a creek or to a little, the river there or whatever it is. It was not true. And The Guardian quietly apologized. But that was not before a good long time of people going crazy on social media about it. David Brody joins us now. David, this is a pattern now. Listen, I haven't been a fan of the mainstream news media for 40 years, but now we have a new pattern, which is they go with stories that have flimsy or almost no sourcing. They make a big splash out of it, and then quietly they correct it. Now, this started with all this stuff in Gaza with phony pictures and phony information, but now you see they brought it to Ohio, and they're getting away with it because The Guardian is still publishing this morning. I don't understand how this can go on. I mean, you can't sue them, so there you go.
Yeah, it's the old put it in the atmosphere trick, right? You know, just throw it out there and then once again, let it get picked up. And guess what, Jake? It does get picked up. Why? Because we've talked about this before. And Mark Halpern used to say this, which is true. It's the gang of 500. You know, the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN, all of the elites. And they all just kind of start to see that and they go, oh, that's a sexy headline. I think we'll go with that. And all of a sudden it becomes more fodder out there and it takes hold. You mentioned sources. So inside this article, sadly, I shouldn't say it cracked me up, but it was comical. This is the sourcing from the article. Quote, one source with knowledge of the matter who communicated with The Guardian anonymously alleged. Really? Really? I mean, so can we pick that apart for a second? One source, in other words, no name, with knowledge of the matter. Hey, you and I have knowledge of the matter, by the way. You know, that could be anybody who communicated with The Guardian anonymously. So you got a three-pronged screwed up source to begin with. Oh, and here's the kicker. As I take off my glasses for effect, Jake Novak. Actually, I got to put him back on to read. Later, The Guardian said, quote, this is the Guardian's article, The Guardian could not independently confirm this specific claim. So they took an anonymous source that was totally bogus to begin with and totally unverified, went with it, and then said they couldn't even verify the claim. Welcome to how the media does their reporting.
Yeah, solid work there.
Solid stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, solid stuff. And of course, you know, all joking aside, this is what they're doing in war zones. I mean, at least with this Creek story, I guess no one's going to get killed. But they've been doing this in war stories. They've been doing it all over for some time. Yeah. By the way, let me break into that elite group of 500 right now, because I know exactly what happened here, okay? They all read, some of them, read David McCullough's book, The Johnstown Flood, which I highly, highly recommend. For those of you who know what happened in that disaster, very wealthy people on the top of the hills in Johnstown, PA, put too much water in a man-made lake or whatever they created so they could do yacht races. And that's what led to one of the greatest natural disasters in American history. And some people still say it is still is the biggest natural disaster. So a couple of them read that book and they're like, oh, that reminds me of this. I mean, it's one of those things like they're like little third graders saying, I read this book, Mommy, and now I want to talk about it. Honestly, I'm telling you, that's exactly what was going through the minds of some of the people who promoted this. I would put money on it.
I think you're absolutely right. By the way, let me just say, I've done stories about the Johnstown flood, flood, excuse me, up there in Pennsylvania. Literally been on the ground talking. I mean, I wasn't on the ground when it happened, to be clear. Just in case anybody was wondering, I mean, makeup's good, but it ain't that good. But anyhow, bottom line is, talk about. Oh, see, now I'm digressing. Now we're talking about the Johnstown flood.
No, that's okay. But we know about it too, not just those media elites on the left. And by the way, read that book. Read every book by David McCullough, by the way. Yeah. I highly recommend it. I also highly recommend that everyone stick around for American Sunrise for the next few hours. And of course, stick with Real America's Voice all day because we got a big news conference with President Trump around 10 a.m. Yes. So basically, you should just not change the channel and keep watching us. I'll be back tomorrow with Early Edition.
American Sunrise is a great way to start your morning. Join us Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got the news of the day and some compelling interviews that you don't want to miss. Here's what you missed from yesterday.
President President Trump is calling for a new census where illegal aliens cannot be counted.
I think this is how you save the country. We've always talked about what the Democrats want to do. They want to import millions of illegals, and they always talk about, well, there's no strategy here, so just make them citizens, give them voting rights. That's compromise on immigration. Absolutely not. What they want to do is they want the census. They want these illegals to count. That's going to impact the Electoral College votes. It's going to impact congressional districts. It is one of the most important things that Trump can do. I put it top 5. So happy to see it. I know he's got the courage to carry it through. Hats off to him for that. It's a big day for America when he announced that. Thank God.
How are they going to get these ICE agents quickly to the streets? Because they're going to need more. They've got the money. And then how best to deploy them? Because interior enforcement is the key here.
They are on the hook at ICE, and they're very eager to bring in 10,000 net new agents to the front line. So that's attorneys, that's special agents, investigators, and the enforcement removal operations. So they've got to find these people. They have to vet them, recruit, find, and vet them, bring them into the training academy, and then get them out on the street as quickly as possible.
Long term, Israel obviously doesn't want to fully run Gaza from the inside. That's not their goal here. So what best to do here? How do you see it?
They don't want to be an occupying power. They want to get rid of Hamas. Hamas is what's been keeping Gazans under military rule, under terrorist rule since 2007. So think about that. 20 years these people have been suffering, and at the same time launching terrorist attacks against Israel. So the only way to eradicate Hamas is to take control of Gaza, make sure that you eliminate this terrorist group and the other terrorist groups that are being funded by Iran from Gaza.
Gene, I want to go to you first. Does someone need to remind him that they lost the election? I mean, we've been celebrating anniversaries, birthdays all day on this show. Kind of strange to celebrate failure.
I guess when you don't have any victories to celebrate, you just celebrate the anniversaries of when you lost. I don't know, Emily, because we have so much winning on our side of the aisle. And I just feel like these two, I mean, how embarrassing to the entire Democrat Party that that's what they have to commemorate is the fact that he joined a losing campaign for a losing presidential nominee. I mean, and Kamala's been everywhere too. Do these people think they're the leader of the Democrat Party? Because guess what? I have big news for them. They're not.
Ahead on American Sunrise, President Trump set to deliver remarks at the White House, explaining his plans for cleaning up Washington, D.C. He says no more Mr. Nice Guy. Live coverage throughout the show. Plus, the Alaska summit. President Trump set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week, but will Ukrainian President Zelensky be there as well? The latest ahead. And it's back to school season across the country. How is one school in Florida trying to give more people the choice for a better education? Those stories and more as American Sunrise starts on a Monday right now. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Good morning. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Dr. Gina, live from West Palm Beach. Thank you so much for tuning in to American Sunrise. Let's bring in David Brody in Washington, D.C., and Terrence Bates in our Denver newsroom. Good morning, you guys. Happy Monday. I know we were talking about how we're getting caffeinated this morning. We've got a lot of big headlines to get to.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Emily.
David and Emily, good morning. So the biggest headline, I think, is that President Trump is going to be holding a news conference here in just a couple of hours, 10 o'clock Eastern time at the White House. He's already deployed 120 FBI agents to the streets of Washington, D.C., and there is talk that potentially National Guard troops could also be roaming the streets of Washington, D.C. All of this, David, in an effort to clean up the nation's capital. This really is huge news. It is unprecedented, and I hate to use that word because I feel like we use it too often, but this is really unprecedented that a sitting president would pretty much take control of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and that's basically what we're expecting to happen, David.
No doubt. Unprecedented and President Trump go in the same sentence, I think, ever since he glided down the escalator back in 2015, June of 2015. This is a big deal. And so you're going to hear a lot of liberals today, especially on CNN and MSNBC, say, well, you know what? Violent crime is down in D.C. over the last year or so. And that is technically true. Let's remember a couple of things here. First of all, okay, down from what? It's still in the top 5 of crime overall. And what President Trump is saying here is, look, not on my watch. He is the president of the United States who can control the National Guard to bring in the National Guard to D.C. It's the only jurisdiction he can actually do that in alone by himself. So he's going to do it. He's got the power to do it. I think what's going to be interesting today, guys, is whether or not he actually mobilizes the D.C. police force as well. That more controversial. He can do it. He can do it for 30 days. But after that, Congress would have to get involved. So we'll see about that. But look, obviously, I've been in D.C. the last 25, 30 years or so. I can't keep track now at this point. And obviously, there are tons of problems there. Especially, there's a homeless problem right in that touristy area down in D.C. But beyond that, crime is rampant in 3/4 of the district, I should say. And the reason I say 3/4 is, you guys know, it's divided up into quadrants, right? Northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. And northwest is the biggest quadrant where most of the tourists go. But the other 3 quadrants are just horrible. But what you're seeing there on the screen, this stuff is in the northwest. This is in the biggest quadrant right in front of tourists. And this is what Trump wants to clean up as well. So lots to unpack here. I've spoken long enough, Emily. It's time for a Bible verse, I think.
I think it is. It is. We are awaiting that presser at 10 a.m. But first, let's check in with the Bible. Yeah. Ephesians 3:16-19 is the verse today. It reads, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and length and depth and height, to know the love of Christ, which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all of the fullness of God. Great way to start out this Monday. Now, President Trump is slated to deliver a press conference in a little more than 90 minutes on his plans for Washington, D.C. We spoke about that a few moments ago. Trump posted this on Truth Social regarding Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser ahead of the address. He says the mayor of D.C. is a good person who has tried, but she has been given many chances, and the crime numbers get worse, and the city only gets dirtier and less attractive. The American public is not going to put up with it any longer, just like I took care of the border where you had 0 illegals coming across last month from millions the year before. I will take care of our cherished capital, and we will make it truly great again. Before the tense squalor, filth, and crime, it was the most beautiful capital in the world. It will soon be that again. For more, let's bring in Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, I want to get your take. What do you make of all of this, and what do you expect that we will hear from the president in just a few hours?
I suspect it's going to be classic Donald Trump. He's going to follow through with what he said. I think with the homeless situation, I was a mayor of Knox County. And in Knox County, I can't speak for Washington, but half those folks half of them are mentally ill or are actually veterans. And it's really it's a mark on this country. We need to de-escalate. You need to demagnetize. You create programs for people that come in for free, but no, there's no credibility, no recognition, and it just gets overrun. And that's exactly what's happening. I want to remind you of something about Washington, D.C., how out of touch they are. And I like Mayor Bowser. She's a delightful lady, but I believe it's way over her head. When they sent a group of bureaucrats to speak to us in Congress about the crime situation, on that very day, in the middle of the day, a kid was carjacked right out near the Capitol. I remember he had a Jeep in broad daylight. And the thing that really ticked me off to show you how out of touch these bureaucrats are, I think they sent 6 white men there. And I said, maybe I'm the wrong person to be asking this dadgum question, but Washington, D.C. has got a lot of black folks, and I'm not seeing any black folks in this group. And they all shook their, well, it was this, that, and the other thing. And as I walked out, my friend Kwasi Mafumi, who we don't agree on anything other than I like him, and he seems like a good man, he complimented me on what I said. He said, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it just shows how out of touch the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. is with the reality. Those pictures you're showing or movies or whatever of the tents, that's everywhere in Washington, D.C. It was, coming from East Tennessee, I'd drive up there and all these tents. I mean, who are these people camping? They're homeless. It's just these huge camps right in and outside of the area. It's filthy. It's dangerous. It needs to be cleaned up. Donald J. Trump's following through with what he said. Washington, D.C., as Reagan said, needs to be a bright, shining city on a hill. It is not. It is a dump, and it needs to be cleaned up.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I take that trip into the White House often, and as you go to the White House, just within that quarter mile just around the White House, you see homeless everywhere in the parks surrounding the White House and other places. Hey, Congressman, let me go to something totally different internationally. This is the NBC News headline. White House is considering inviting Zelensky to Alaska. Here we go. We've got the Alaska summit going to be this Friday. Putin wants to keep the Donbass region that they've captured. Zelensky's saying, you're out of your mind. We're not ceding any land to you guys. So what do you think? I mean, President Trump's the master at the art of the deal, but is there really a deal to be had in the first place? I mean, this thing, listen, bless his heart, as they say right down in Tennessee, but President Trump, good luck trying to get this thing done, because you got both sides pretty entrenched. What do you think?
And they say, bless his heart, and then they say, we need to pray for him. Everybody asks, what about? That's the way you gossip in the church, is to say you're going to pray for somebody. We found out they got some sin in their life. And the sin in our life right now is the egos of Zelensky and Putin. And we've got and Trump's the guy. Again, he is a negotiator. But one thing you got to remember, we're not talking about putting boots on the ground. I think what Trump's going to tell them is the economic power of this country is going to be involved in this. Putin, you need to get to the dadgum table, or we're going to cut off all your oil, because we are now producing again. We've got a real leader at Pennsylvania Avenue. And Zelensky needs to quit stealing our dadgum money. He even admitted that he didn't know where half that money we sent him, and that's $200 billion. And the third thing you got to watch is Congress, because you've got people that are profiting from this, and I call them war pimps. The Pentagon, all these defense contractors, everybody's profiting from this thing, except for the people that are on the ground, the poor people in Russia and in Ukraine, the kids that are being killed. You see kids snatched off the street in Ukraine and drafted in their forced draft. Russia, I'm sure, does something even worse. They're bringing in mercenaries. This thing is an awful, awful land war, and our military intelligence, as they so called it, is sort of like congressional ethics. Remember, they said this thing was going to be a 2 or 3 week war. It wasn't. We overcompensated. We miscommunicated, and we said Russia had all this power, and they're basically, their GDP is somewhere between Canada's and France. America, only involvement we need is right there where Trump is doing, and he's doing a power play. It's Alaska. Remember, we got Alaska from Russia, if I remember correctly, from my history. So there's a lot going on there. Trump's playing the game. He understands it. If anybody can deliver, it's him. I'm not, I'm not overcompensating for Trump, because I love watching everybody. The big beautiful bill, the cryptocurrency. Oh, he's not going to do this by the 4th of July. He's not going to do this. He gets engaged and he does it.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, you're praising the president. One of the things that I think you would agree you've been somewhat critical of the administration for is its handling of the Epstein's file case. You're on record calling for more transparency. Vice President J.D. Vance, in fact, praising House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer when it comes to the issue of subpoenas in the Epstein files case. Here's what he had to say, and we'll talk on the other side.
While the Democrats have tried to make this Epstein thing about anything but the fact that Democrat billionaires and Democrat political leaders went to Epstein Island all the time, who knows what they did, but it's totally reasonable to ask these questions. What you saw in the House's subpoena is they are trying to investigate all of the things related to this particular case. I know a lot of Americans want answers. I certainly want answers. And I think James Comer and the team of the House, they're doing the right thing. And of course, we know that Clinton or allegedly he went to the island 26 times, 28 times. Totally appropriate for Comer to be asking what was going on at that island.
Congressman, you have the floor for about 45 seconds, sir.
All right, 100%. I couldn't agree with my buddy J.D. Vance anymore. I'm the one that asked for the subpoena for Ms. Maxwell. I've asked for transparency. Look, I've passed some of the toughest laws in the country. I passed ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children in Tennessee. I tried to get chemical castration. I passed a death penalty. It was ruled unconstitutional. It's been ruled constitutional since then. Same law, different court. Look, I've held the hand of people that have been molested, and it's a life sentence, brother. And when I meet my maker and he asked me what I did for the least amongst them, and that was Jesus who said that, I'm going to say, dadgummit, I did everything I could. And we've got to get to the bottom of this. If they had the goods on Trump, you know good and well, they had those files for 4 years, they would have released it. This is just a big blustering thing. They're trying to get their names off the front page, because the biggest story when all this was going on was, who's going to be the leader of New York? It was going to be, and they said, oh, you're a communist. And he said, oh, no, I'm not a communist. I'm a socialist. And that was their selling point. That's why they had to get off the front page. That's why they're changing gears over to Epstein. This thing I don't think we're ever going to know the truth. And did he have a client list? Heck no. Criminals don't keep successful criminals don't. He seemed to Epstein was pretty successful, but I guess he's dealing with the devil now. And I support total transparency on this thing. And I believe the president does too. He's been pretty specific. He said, I banned this dirtbag from Mar-a-Lago over 15 years ago before he was suicided. So I don't have any problems with the president or the White House on anything they've done. I think they've been excellent, except Pam Bondi, when she released those white folders that had everything we already knew. I just think she was in over her skis. She didn't know like you and I would know what was going on. Yeah. So I think it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And lately, Ms. Bondi's been finishing pretty strong.
Yeah, Pam Bondi allegedly had that client list on her desk. I think, like you said, maybe that wasn't handled very well. But Congressman Burchett, please stick around. We have a lot more questions for you. Got to take a quick break here. But coming up, we will ask Congressman Burchett about the potential upcoming government shutdown. And later, FBI Director Kash Patel is speaking out on the success of combating crime in the country. How much progress has been made? We will tell you ahead on American Sunrise. Stay with us.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
President Trump going to hold a press conference at 10 a.m. this morning. He calls himself no more Mr. Nice Guy when it comes to cleaning up Washington, D.C. We unveil the plans, or he does, here shortly. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. We have more now with Congressman Tim Burchett. First, though, we have to say that it is all sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Congressman Burchett, we appreciate you sticking around. Over the next several weeks, you and your colleagues are going to have to pass some sort of budget. At this point, I think most of us believe it's just going to be a continuing resolution. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum. I have PTSD just by the words continuing resolution. But it looks like that is what's going to happen. Let me just ask this. How can you, and I'm asking this question, Congressman, because I know, having talked to you, that you typically aren't a proponent of continuing resolutions. But in this case, it's probably going to happen. So how can you and others who seem to think like you push your fellow colleagues to really pass the required spending bills, the constitutional required spending bills, instead of continuing to kick the can down the road? That's what's going to happen. But how can you put pressure on everyone else to do something different?
We need to do like we do in Tennessee, have single issue spending bills. And thank you for that question. And another reason that it's probably a little more palatable, in the past, a continued resolution was just a continuation of Pelosi and Schumer's bad spending on top of the things that they gave us, or that they gave the people that would bend to their will, and the pork or whatever. So you're a continuation under the big, beautiful bill has cleaned up a lot of that mess, as you know, the border, men and girls sports. I mean, just go down the list of everything, cutting out all the crazy spending overseas that we're doing, the drag shows in Peru and all this crazy stuff. So a continuation would be actually a continuation of some of Trump and J.D. Vance's good policy decisions. So it's a little different, but you're right. We need to pass a budget. We haven't passed a budget in 30 years. It's not sexy. Nobody cares about it back home. Everybody's just worried you're going to close down the government. But let's be real about closing down the government. It causes some pain, but everybody gets compensated. Nobody can lose their home in government because they can't make their mortgage because they weren't paid. There's laws against all that. And unfortunately, Congress will still get paid. And I'm
Congressman, I'm sorry, but then why not just close down the government? Why not close down the government because it's the right thing to do to force everyone to pass the budget? Why not just do it? And I ask that question because I hear it from some of our viewers saying, shut the thing down until we get it done right.
I can't agree with them more, and I've done that in the past. But I don't know if it accomplishes the same thing it has in the past. Let's look at what's going to be in that continued resolution. Let's make sure that it's the right thing. But I agree with you. I'm not a big fan of government. I say shut it all down. Let's get a budget. But I don't think the will's there of either party to pass a budget. You and I would want to. If my mama was here, she could balance it on the back of her checkbook. But as they used to in the old days, as I find them continuously stuck in places after she's long gone. But the reality is the will's not there in Congress. And I'm not at the financial table, and the big boys are. And we gotta start calling these people into account. And both parties, I'm with you. I'm frustrated complete with that whole situation. And I'll get up there and I'll be on the steps and I'll say the same stuff every dadgum time until we get what we need. And then when we get what we need, then we take the deal. But if we don't have a deal this time, I would be with you on that. Just shut the whole dadgum thing down and start over.
All right, Congressman, I appreciate the time, and I apologize. I promise those were actual questions, even though I probably put them into statements on a rant. No. But I know typically how you see that we see eye to eye on those issues, and it's a little frustrating.
I have an 18-year-old daughter. I'm used to answering tough questions, sir.
I hear that. Congressman, appreciate you, my friend. Good to talk to you as always.
I love you guys, and thank y'all always open up with the scripture. That makes my day. It always, I think, how'd they know I needed to hear that scripture that was applicable in my life right then? So thank y'all so much.
Absolutely.
Well, Dadgummit, we love you too. All right.
Dadgummit, I love y'all.
Thank you, Congressman.
Up next, President Trump is slated to give a press conference here in less than 2 hours, probably closer to about an hour and a half now. He's going to talk about cleaning up Washington, D.C. and lay out his plan to do so. This is a live look at the White House where he'll be speaking. We'll, of course, take you there here on Real America's Voice the moment that happens. First, though, a quick look at this day in history. It was on this date in 2022 that U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland personally approved the FBI search of President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home on the same day that a Washington Post source said the FBI search was for missing documents pertaining to nuclear weapons. Probably remember all of that. More American Sunrise coming your way in a couple of minutes.
The White House, 10 a.m. this morning, President Trump announces his plan for how he's going to clean up D.C., get ready for the National Guard to roll in We'll talk about it here throughout the next hour and a half or so. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunshine, American Sunrise. What show am I doing exactly? A little more than 90 minutes, and we'll see his plans, the president's plans to clean up D.C. My goodness, I need to get a life. This is what he posted, by the way, President Trump, on Truth Social this weekend. Quote, "I'm going to make our capital safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless have to move out immediately," is what he says. "We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring in to zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back." And of course, the obligatory at the end. We love it. "Thank you for your attention to this matter." All right, for more, let's bring in retired sergeant and the spokesperson for the National Police Association, Betsy Brantner Smith. Betsy, good to have you here on the show. So, it looks like Trump is going to bring in the National Guard, which he can do. It's actually, as you know, the only National Guard that he has total control over. We're hearing possibly 1,000 National Guard troops. You wonder, Betsy, if he's going to take control of the D.C. police force as well. He can do that for 30 days, and then Congress, then it becomes a whole issue after that. What do you think is going to happen, and how tactically would he go about all of this? Good morning to you.
Well, this is a difficult issue. Washington, D.C. is 10 square miles. So I think it would be great if President Trump could show the rest of the country how it's done. Now, by taking over the, D.C. Metro Police Department, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to utilize the National Guard to assist the D.C. Metro Police. And I also think that he is going to use federal law enforcement to increase patrols. But the real key is going to be prosecution. That is the problem in Washington, D.C., is prosecution. Now he's got Jeanine Pirro in there. But your big problem in D.C. right now is violent juvenile crime. And that's very difficult for the federal government to reach out and touch. So we'll see how that goes. I also hope he talks about the Protect and Serve Act to give law enforcement officers more protection, punishments for people attacking cops, because we've had well over 200 police officers shot in the country, and we need to help cops help keep the country safe, especially in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Well, let's broaden this out to the whole country nationally here. I want to get your reaction to this town hall headline. Kash Patel unloads on crime in the U.S. in Trump's first 200 days. There's been more than 1,600 violent offenders and trafficking arrested. Your reaction to this?
Well, the National Police Association was the first organization to endorse Kash Patel for FBI director. So, of course, we're thrilled. This is what we want. We want a non-politicized FBI. We want an FBI that's out there helping state and local law enforcement put criminals behind bars. So absolutely, this is what the FBI is supposed to do. This really makes us feel great about what the federal government is doing when it comes to crime. Our prior FBI was spending more time going after cops and parents at school board meetings and President Trump than they were affecting real bad guys. So we love to see this.
Betsy Brantner Smith, really appreciate it. We're tight on time this morning, but short and sweet, which is beautiful. So much great analysis. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, good. Coming up, did I just say good? Good. We can confirm that. President Trump reportedly considering reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Is that the right move? We're talking about it next on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise, a beautiful shot of the White House this morning. I'm Emily Finn, filling in today for Dr. Gino. We so appreciate you all joining us. It is time now for today's health news, sponsored by The Wellness Company. And under the microscope today, if that song didn't give it away, it may be 420 somewhere, and that somewhere may be all throughout the United States. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the Trump administration may be considering reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug in the U.S. The Journal claims President Trump told donors earlier this month he was looking to move forward on the issue. Marijuana is currently a Schedule I drug, and the president, in a post on Truth Social last September, said he would, quote, unlock the medical uses of marijuana to a Schedule III drug. Not everyone is on board with the president's reclassification plan for marijuana in the U.S., though. RAV's very own Charlie Kirk weighed in on this issue, citing against the president. Kirk says he hopes reclassifying marijuana doesn't happen, adding, we need to protect public spaces for kids. Everything already smells like weed, which is ridiculous. Let's make it harder to ruin public spaces, not easier. A little bit of a divisive topic there. Let's send it over to David Brody now in Washington, D.C.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Emily. You know, a new administration in Washington, D.C. has brought a lot of positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. The reality is, however, that there is only so much the government can do, and that if we really want to make America healthy again, that starts at home with each and every one of us. And that is where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from the TWC doctors all the time on this network. You know that their products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy. The Wellness Company gives you the opportunity to make sure you are prepared for whatever happens with their series of prescription medical kits. Kits, by the way, that contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist you in the proper use of those medications. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more. I'm sorry, did I hear weight loss? Anyhow, it can help you stay healthy and live a longer and more satisfying life. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of you and your family. I've got the kit as well. Go to twc.health/RAV today and order. Once again, twc.health/RAV and use the promo code RAV to save, I'm going to quote Dr. G here, 10%. All right, that is a tribute to her. Well, a tribute. She'll be back. Don't worry. I mean, she's just off for the day. Our good friend and top economist, Steve Moore, was brought into the Oval Office by President Trump late last week. He had some interesting new data to share. Take a look.
So I called the president because I had some very good news from some new data that we've been able to put together that no one has ever seen before, and I'll just very quickly go through these. So I was telling the president that he did the right thing in calling for a new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because this shows that over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, the BLS overestimated job creation by 1.5 million jobs. That's Mr. President, that's a gigantic error. And I don't know if she's. I'm not.
It might not have been an error. That's the bad part. If it was an error, it would be one thing. I don't think it's an error. I think they did it purposely.
Whether that, you may well be right, but even if it wasn't purposefully, it's incompetence.
Right.
Okay. So 1.5 million jobs overestimated.
That was great by Steve Moore saying, yeah, either way, it's incompetence. Great stuff. For more, let's bring in the man himself. That'd be former Trump economic advisor and the co-author of the book, The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity. That'd be Steve Moore. Steve, great to have you on the show. So tell us more about this Oval Office presentation, how it all unfolded. Good stuff.
Well, good morning, David. Thanks for having me. It was almost a out-of-body experience being there in the Oval Office with the president, and I was showing him some of those statistics that you just put on the screen. And all of a sudden, Trump says to me, hey, let's just have an impromptu press conference. He calls all the media in and the cameras and about 40 reporters crowd into the Oval Office, and he hands it over to me. And I was like, I didn't quite know what to say, but it went very well. Look, Trump is in a very good mood. The economy is really improving dramatically. And one of the things that I showed him was how much better, David, on some of the charts that followed that first chart I showed you. Look at what's happened to income just this year for families in the first 5 months of the Trump administration, up by like $1,100 in 5 months. Incidentally, under Biden, in his first 4 years in office, the median family income grew by less than $500. So what I showed is that the Trump performance on the economy for middle-class families, there it is. Look at that. That number, almost $6,000 increase in real median income under Trump. That's the red line, and the blue line is what happened under Biden. So 10 times higher median family income increase under Trump than Biden.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers just say it all. I can look at my 401k and I'm like, okay, glad Trump is president compared to Biden, because it's much better under him. Let me ask you about this.
By the way, let me just say, David,
yeah,
you raised a very good point. I was talking about income there. You mentioned wealth. The stock market did substantially better when Trump was president than when Biden. So if you add the wealth effect to the income effect, Americans were much better off when Trump was president. And my point is that so far in the first 6 months of the Trump presidency, in Trump 2.0, same trend.
Yeah. I was going to ask you one question, but let me go back and ask you something different about tariffs real quick. I know you're not the biggest fan of tariffs. Got that. We understand that. But there's billions of dollars of revenue coming in to the government here. What's your take on what's going on with tariffs? Principally, I know you got some concerns, quite a few concerns. But how do you think he's handled all of this? Exactly.
Well, I talked about that with the president. The first thing he does when he sees me, there's Steve Moore, he doesn't like my tariffs. Well, I'm not a big fan of tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. And, some of those taxes, those billions of dollars we're raising, come out of the pockets of consumers, and some of it is borne by the foreign companies. But I have to say that Trump's policies and strategy seems to be working, David. I mean, you've got all these countries now. How about that Europe deal? Where, remember, 3 months ago, the Europeans said, we'll never make a deal with Donald Trump. We're never going to negotiate with them. Well, guess what? They negotiated with them, and we got a much fairer deal from the Europeans. That's happening with Japan. It's happening with Korea. It's happening with, we'll see what happens with China. I don't trust China very much, but if he can continue to get these deals that lower the penalty that is imposed on American manufacturers and dairy farmers and our agriculture and our technology firms, I'm all for that. And so it seems to me things are going pretty well on the trade front.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you about the BLS chief who was let go. Help us through this a little bit, because, I mean, you're making the case with the numbers, which makes sense. What about some of the concern that people would like to basically have a search for the truth and make sure the numbers are accurate? Like, in other words, a lot of people think the BLS chief has no political agenda, but Trump is kind of throwing that out, saying, well, wait a minute, whether it's a political agenda or not, something is fishy here. What do you make of this idea that Americans are trying to kind of, they want to have faith in the statistics that our government is providing from a nonpartisan standpoint? How do you see all of that?
It's a great point, David. By the way, we don't have faith and we don't have honesty in a lot of our numbers. I mean, let me give you an example with the census. Trump has called for a mid-decade census recount, which is absolutely necessary. Even the Census Bureau itself estimates that red states like Florida and Texas probably lost 3 or 4 congressional seats because there was a miscount in the census. And where was the miscount? In states like New York and Illinois. So there is not the data has become politicized. And I think what Trump is saying, and I was certainly saying this, is we don't want to skew the numbers either way. We want to make sure these numbers are accurate, especially when it comes to the jobs report. That's the most important economic statistic that comes out every month, is what's happening with jobs. If we can't trust that number, it has very negative effects on the U.S. economy.
As we wrap up, Steve, one thing about Trump's personality, right? I mean, you have given him a lot of solid advice over the years. You're close with him. He knows you. And yet you were against him on tariffs. I say against him. You had concerns about the tariffs. And yet he brought you into the Oval Office. You continue to have this relationship with him. I think this says a lot about Trump to say that he's willing to talk about that. I'm curious to get your take on that part.
I think it's you really nailed it, my friend David. I mean, this is the one thing I really respect about Donald Trump. From the first time I met him 8 or 9 years ago, we were duking it out on issues, and I agree. Look, I agree with 80% of what Trump's doing. Okay, so some of the things I don't agree with, but you can have that fight with him inside the Oval Office, and he respects people who might have a different viewpoint. Now, look, he's the president; he makes the final decision. And one last thing, David, even in the instances where I was in the Oval Office with Trump and he made a decision that I didn't necessarily agree with, I always believed, David, that in his heart, he believed he was doing what was best for the American people and what was putting America first. And you look at his record, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I love the servant leadership, by the way, too. Like you're doing the presentation in the Oval Office and he's holding the charts, and he's like literally he's got to take the charts in his hand and he's like the assistant there with the PowerPoint presentation. Hey, Steve, great to have you here on the show. Thanks so much.
Have a great week, my friend. Take care.
Great stuff. All right, coming up, Bravo star Jennifer Welch, never heard of her, slams Trump supporters and says they should be only allowed at Cracker Barrel and banned from ethnic places. That's not a long sentence typo. We have her comments next on American Sunrise.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. You're already drinking coffee, but is it doing anything for you other than giving you a caffeine spike? Rejuvenate Coffee is different. It's scienced-backed, infused with CAAKG, a powerful compound studied for its abilities to support longevity, cellular energy, and metabolism at the deepest level. That means sharper mornings, no crash, more focus, and long-term benefits that your body will thank you for. I drink it because I care about my health, my energy, and how I show up for my family, for my work, and for the life that I want to build. If you're going to drink coffee anyway, make it one that works as hard as you do. Head to 1775coffee.com/RAV and use the code RAV for 10% off your order. Start your mornings with something that fuels you more than just your body. It fuels your principles. Don't just wake up, rejuvenate. All right, now that we are caffeinated, it's time to stay awake, not woke. And who is woke today? Bravo star Jennifer Welch. She says Trump supporters should be banned from ethnic restaurants. Seriously, she said that. Take a look.
I've had it with white people that triple trumped, that have the nerve and the audacity to walk into a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. I don't think you should be able to enjoy anything but Cracker Barrel. And if you want to triple Trump and you want to browbeat DEI and you want to browbeat gay people and you want to browbeat black people as you've been doing for 400 years, and you want to browbeat this generation of immigrants that come over here and open up businesses earnestly, pay their taxes, you want to demonize them and call them rapists and felons and all this, when the felon is the teeny weeny mushroom piece of Kenkel's McTaco at the top of the ticket. I have had it from top to bottom. White people that triple Trump should be banned, boycotted from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. Get your out of the Mexican restaurant, get your over to Cracker Barrel.
Whoa. Okay. For more, let's bring in Terrence and David. You know, David, you said you didn't really know who this woman was. I didn't know who she was either before this clip. Terrence, I want to go to you first and get your take. For the record, I love Cracker Barrel. I love playing the peg games. I love all the comfort food. But man, this woman is so fired up over all of the lies that she has been fed about MAGA. Totally out of touch with the movement, Terrence.
For the record, I also love Cracker Barrel. And yeah, maybe the white people should stay out of Cracker Barrel so I could get served faster. So no, do go to that's a joke. That's a joke, folks. That's a joke. That's Terrence being funny. That's a joke. I do not mean that. You know, the take in and of itself is un-American. It's one of the most un-American things I've heard. That simply because you see the world differently, or because you see people a little differently, or may even be critical of certain subcultures here in the United States, to say that you shouldn't be able to go to ethnic restaurants, or that you shouldn't be, you know, that you should stay away. I think that is so short-sighted, David, and it's almost not even worth responding to, because anyone with any common sense realizes that that's just a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, Emily, you said fired up. It was downright anger. I mean, she's just angry. And let's be clear. This ain't righteous anger, okay? This is liberal, demented anger. This is what they do. I mean, they're just so angry all the time. I mean, all the time they're so angry, and not for righteous reasons. By the way, I feel bad for the editor of our show who had to put that clip together, who had to take out all of the bad words. I mean, literally there was nothing left of the clip at the end, by the way. Listen, one of the things she said there, which I thought was interesting, is illegals specifically. Illegals. I'm sorry, I say illegals. She said immigrants, but she didn't say the word illegals. You know, she said immigrants are coming to this country and setting up shop and paying taxes and everything. No, illegal. She's talking about illegal immigrants is what she's talking about. No one has a problem with immigrants in this country. We are a nation of immigrants, legal immigrants, and the left always loves to play word games for people that are unsuspecting. But we know the deal. We know exactly what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And I'll just add, if I can just add one point, I think it's important for all of us, not just white people, but for all of us, to see our fellow Americans at wherever they are, because I think it provides us an opportunity to have discussions, to have real discussions. And for me, change comes from discussions. I may not agree with you, but at least if we can have a civil conversation about the things that we might see differently, maybe we'll at least understand each other's position. Again, we don't have to agree, but we can agree to disagree, and more importantly, we can have a civil conversation, a civil debate even, if you will, about whatever it is that we might see differently.
And I will say, I don't think there's any better place to have those conversations and those civil debates than Cracker Barrel. All right, you guys, we have a whole lot more coming up on American Sunrise. There has been a growing push for faith-based school choice in the U.S. on their first day back to school. How is Florida paving the way? Well, we will show you as our show continues. Stick with us.
God created the heaven and the earth.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. It's now time for our moment of faith, and it's brought to us by Lee Greenwood and the God Bless the USA Bible. In focus today, the importance of school choice. Jupiter Christian in Florida is now reportedly going to expand due to high demand for the state voucher program. The school now has a 700-student waiting list. There's been a growing demand for school choice, and Florida is looking like a test model for the rest of the country. For more, let's bring in the president of Jupiter Christian School, Jay Boggess. Jay, good to see you, my friend.
Morning. How are you today?
Doing well. So let's talk about what you've seen as Florida is now expanding its school choice program. There are a number of states that are starting to consider adding vouchers and giving parents an opportunity to have greater choice. All of this kind of as a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill. What's been the change there? How much traction, if you will, are you seeing this taking at your specific school?
Terrence, what we're seeing here on the ground in the great state of Florida is going back to 2 years and passing the universal voucher, where we essentially aligned students with tax dollars. The idea that parental rights are being elevated and school choice is now in the hands of parents, and the ability to choose what is in your child's best interest rather than funding necessarily a system of schools. It is customized and individualized to align with what parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles want in their child's education.
Are you seeing that more and more parents are seeking out religious-based, spiritually-based schools, or are they simply looking for something other than the local public school?
I do believe that there is a resurgence of seeking out truth, beauty, and goodness in this country. And the alignment for a parent to know that their child is seen, known, and loved in their educational setting. No longer is this the assembly line concept of education. It needs to be individualized. And I think parents are leaning into these priorities and really taking a hard look of what that means. I also think that there is. Oh, sorry, Terrence.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought. Please. I'm sorry.
Just the idea of we're living in a world where there is a culture of mistrust in public education. Do I trust whether or not my child is safe and secure? Do I trust the things that are being taught to my children, and do they align with my beliefs, our morals, our values? These are the things that are being talked about at American family tables by every American throughout this nation.
And is that some of what you're hearing from the parents who are looking to bring their kids to your school, that our public schools just aren't serving my kids, not only from an educational standpoint, but I don't trust them, it's not safe, I need an alternative? Is that really the driving force from what you're hearing?
I do believe that it is a driving force. I also believe that when you add choice into any capitalistic concept, there is going to be competition, and people are going to choose the superior choice in their opinion. That, again, elevates the parental right and concept. No longer are we working in a world or concept where government knows better for children than the parents do. Parents are the first and foremost teacher of their child. And as a result, we need to be upholding what parents want for their children and the outcomes as a result.
Absolutely. Jay, unfortunately, we don't have any more time because I could talk for 40 more minutes with you. I'm wishing you and your staff a wonderful school year. You guys start on Wednesday. All the best to you and your staff, and of course, the students and their parents.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. We're back with the second hour of American Sunrise after this.
Introducing the limited edition God Bless the USA Bible, inspired by Lee Greenwood's hit song and the most recognized patriotic anthem in America, God Bless the USA. The God Bless the USA large print leather-bound King James Bible also contains America's founding documents, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, along with a handwritten chorus to Lee Greenwood's song, God Bless the USA. With its large print and slim design, this Bible invites you to explore God's Word anywhere, anytime. The God Bless the USA Bible makes the perfect gift and cherished family heirloom keepsake to pass on to future generations. Designed for an easy reading experience in the trusted King James Version translation, this large print Bible is perfect to take to church, Bible study, work, and for traveling. Order yours today at GodBlessTheUSABible.com.
Ahead on the second hour of American Sunrise, as crime rises and tempers flare, will President Trump have the feds take over D.C.? Trump to address the nation today. The details ahead. Plus, Texas Democrats still on the run after leaving the state to stall a Trump-backed redistricting plan. Now, facing civil wars, at least at home. What's next? We're going to head down to the Lone Star State to find out. And we're spilling some tea on this Monday in the cup and in potentially other hot water. Nancy Pelosi. Her investments beat every hedge fund in 2024. Okay, huh? And now President Trump is accusing her of insider trading. Details ahead as the second hour of American Sunrise starts on a Monday. Right now. Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody, coming to you from the deep state, from D.C., where Trump's about to federalize me. Let's bring in T. Bates in our Denver newsroom and American Sunrise contributor Emily Finn, who joins us from West Palm Beach. Dr. Gina, by the way, has the day off. Good morning to both of you. Hey, here's my hard-hitting question, T. Bates. How was your weekend?
It was a good weekend. It was a full weekend. I learned the hard way that our kids are different than we are, and that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story.
That's a segment. That's a segment.
Yeah, it's a segment. My daughter tried me. She tried me, and I must say I'm proud of her. But she tried me, and I had to say no. I'll go online and I'll share all the details, because otherwise we'll be here at 10 o'clock still talking about that. But to answer your question, David, it was a pretty good weekend.
And Emily, how about you? How was your weekend?
Great weekend as well. I was home in Michigan with my family. We celebrated my grandfather's 90th birthday. That is Grandpa Finn on the Irish side. And so we had a very Irish celebration in Michigan. It was a lot of fun.
Very, very nice.
We little Grandpa Finn from the Irish side.
That's perfect, Terrence. Perfect. I love that accent. You got that down.
That was very good. I had no idea T-Bates did some of that. All right, that's good stuff. All right, so we're standing by for a White House press conference, 10 a.m. President Trump set to announce his plans to, quote, stop crime in D.C. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump says D.C. has become one of the most dangerous cities anywhere in the world. It will soon be one of the safest. For more on what we can expect to hear from the president, let's bring in American Sunrise and RAV's chief White House correspondent, Brian Glenn. Brian, I tell you what, here come the National Guard. You know that's happening. What's going on? Good morning to you.
Yeah. Good morning, David. Good morning, everyone. This is something that President Trump has talked about for quite some time as we watch the violence, the crime, the murder rate in this beautiful nation's capital here, pretty much double any other world's capital around the world. Their murder rate, it's double here. So it's become a very dangerous city. And so, well, today in about an hour, he's going to step into that briefing room, which, by the way, for media people thinking, the room behind me is absolutely packed with people already. It's a very different vibe whenever the president has something on the schedule that's open to all the press here, not something that may just be in the Oval Office. But he's going to announce, I would imagine, that he's going to federalize D.C. We're going to bring in some support, take over the police. Now, as I talked about that murder rate here in D.C., I personally was robbed by gunpoint last year on the Metro. This is a very scary city, and I think that cleaning it up, getting the homeless off the streets as well, is something that President Trump talked about on Truth Social over the weekend. It's very important that we make our nation's capital the leading city in this country. And maybe, David, we need to duplicate this across the nation and make sure we put some extra law enforcement on the ground to keep our cities safe.
I didn't know that.
Brian, it's my understanding that overnight about 120 FBI agents were deployed to the streets of Washington, D.C. to at least start this process. Obviously, if you put, National Guardsmen on the streets, that's so much more visible, and it would look more like a military state, if you will. What were you seeing in transit this morning over to the White House? Could you see a marked difference? And I get, 12 hours doesn't necessarily change a thing. But is the atmosphere different? I guess that's the question. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, Terrence, that's a great question. As of last night, my flight was delayed getting into DCA. Big surprise there. But when I did land and make it way to my apartment, I did notice more law enforcement vehicles out and around the Capitol area. And, of course, this morning, several police vehicles units around the White House here. But what's interesting to point out is the Navy Yard is where they've seen an uptick in a lot of juvenile crime. These are teens anywhere from 14 to 17 years old, 150, 200 deep, and they typically just kind of work in a mob and go into local businesses and things like that. That's really what they're going to focus on initially. The curfew went in place last night. It had an 8 p.m. curfew for the zone there in the Navy Yard going up towards the Capitol. So hopefully that will deter people from going out. But as far as the police presence on the streets, you can see it already. And of course, we've seen this at other big national events that we've had here, the beefed up security. We saw it a little bit during the 250 celebration, the parade. We've seen it around other State of the Union, things like that, how they'll up the presence of police. But it makes me feel good that we have more officers on the street. Hey, you and I, we're not criminals. We don't fear seeing a Capitol Police officer or anybody else, National Guardsman, on the street corner with a gun. It doesn't scare us at all. Matter of fact, it makes us feel safer. And I think that's initially what this plan is to do, is to send a message to criminals that we're going to local law enforcement arrest you. We're going to put the right prosecutors in to charge you. If you're a teen and you do an adult crime, you should be charged for as an adult. And of course, the judges need to make sure they rule and quit releasing these teens back on the street to just do it again.
Well, Brian, we know that you are on the ground there standing by for that press conference, and we'll have more details on the president's plans in just a few moments here. But for the meantime, I want to switch gears to the House Oversight Committee. They want to gather evidence that could overturn Biden's pardons and executive orders. Chairman Comer said the evidence his probe has uncovered that could lead to some questions about the validity of the actions from Joe Biden. What are you hearing about this, Brian?
Yeah, this is a big story, and President Trump often talks about this. But what's key in all of this is these witnesses they bring in, they actually have information for us. And a lot of them have pled the fifth on some of these questions. And so we walk away with not knowing much more than they did when they walked in. But these have huge implications. The EOB building, which is right behind this camera on the 5th floor, that's essentially the White House. That's the auto pen. That's where it's located here. It's not located in there. President Trump signs every executive order by hand, and he often jokes that no auto pen involved in this. But this scandal, and it is a scandal, is huge, and we need to get down to who authorized the use of the auto pen and what it was applied to. Now, if it was pardons for criminals and release out of prison, that's one thing, and that should be dealt with. But we're talking about policy. We're talking about things that altered the course of this country economically, militarily-wise. So these have huge implications. Let's just hope that Comer is able to get as much information as possible so that does lead to some type of indictments or some type of criminal charges to people that were involved in that auto pen scandal.
Ryan, let me switch back and hodgepodge a little bit back to the D.C. situation and what Trump's going to talk about. To me, what's going to be interesting, we know the National Guard's going to be brought in. I think the question then becomes, what about the D.C. police force? Because he can do that for 30 days, and then Congress has to get involved. I think that's going to be one of the key questions. And the other key question is, he wants to clean up the homelessness around D.C. How would he do that exactly, and what does that look like specifically? So I think those are a couple of the key questions. What's your view?
I agree, because I mean, we all have a compassionate heart for people that are homeless. There's no doubt. And David, I can walk out of here, and I do every day, and I see several of them just yards away from the entrance of the White House. So this is something that is personal to this area. We must find a way to put these people into a situation where they can get help if it's a drug addiction, or if they need mental illness, they need to be treated for that. We shut down mental hospitals years ago across this country, and I think we're starting to find for years we found out what the effects of doing that does. So we've got to come up with a plan of how we can deal with the homelessness. But as far as the criminals, David, I love what President Trump put on Truth Social. He said, you know what? We're going to catch you. We're going to lock you up. That's what we're going to do. And I think that's what needs to happen. But we got to send a message, though. And I talked to a top FBI personnel this morning who lives in my building, and he said, Brian, these are 3 things that are crucial. Law enforcement must crack down. We must make sure we prosecute. We got to charge these people with adult crimes, and we need judges to rule on that, because if we don't send a message, I had a colleague just moments ago tell me before we came on, these kids will taunt the police. They know they can't do anything because they're teens. They taunt them. And of course, we want to make it where if you have a gun in this city and you are not permitted to carry that gun, if that gun is stolen, if it's on you illegally, if you're carrying it illegally, that should be a serious crime that has automatic prison terms to that, because we are letting teens run the streets, not just here in D.C., but all across this country. Lawless, we must send a message. We must prosecute them, not as teens, but as adults.
Brian, we only have about...
Need to stop sparing the rod. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Emily.
I just wanted to say we only have about a minute left with you here. President Trump obviously is trying to keep the peace there in D.C., and he's trying to keep the peace across the world as well. He's considering inviting Zelensky to the Alaska summit with Putin. That meeting is focused on peace negotiations, obviously. That's planned for Friday. Brian, I want to see if you're hearing anything more about this, about inviting Zelensky to this meeting.
Yeah, I know that the European Union and the spokesperson for Ukraine, one of the comms people, said they are open and Zelensky is open to visiting with President Trump and Putin, but that would be a Trump decision. And as of right now, President Trump hasn't made a firm commitment to inviting Zelensky. I personally feel like the three of them need to meet, because what's going to happen is that Zelensky feels like, and Ukrainians feel like, some deal was cut with Putin, that they don't have the ability to immediately challenge, critique, maybe amend, that they're going to say there's no deal. So whatever they talk about without them knowing any of it is a dead deal, from a quote from them. So I do think it's important. It's probably 50-50, or maybe a little bit less than that Zelensky does show up to Alaska on Friday. But I do think we need to have a trilateral meeting between the three of them sooner than later.
Brian Glenn, great to have you as always from the White House. Thank you. Busy day, as always. Again, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep. Coming up on American Sunrise, we're about to spill some tea. And who's in hot water, you ask? Well, that would be Nancy Pelosi. There she is. Find out why President Trump has his eyes on her bank account. Plus, California Governor Gavin Newsom and Texas Senator Ted Cruz exchanging some fiery insults about each other on X. We'll reveal which public scandals were in the spotlight during their social media spat when American Sunrise continues.
Let's spill some tea.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Let's spill some tea, fueled by Artillery Tea Company, the only America First veteran-owned tea brand. And their mission is to maximize flavor with whole leaf blends in chemical-free tea bags. No junk, just real tea. And here's the tactical advantage. Each bag brews twice. For the next 2 weeks only, every order comes with a free sample pack. That's an extra 6 cups of premium tea, all on them. So just go to artillerytco.com and use the code BRAVESIP at checkout. Again, that's artillerytco.com. Premium tea, mission-driven, brewed for the brave. Go check it out. All right, we are going to spill some tea now, and who is in the cup today, and potentially in a lot of hot water, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi beat every hedge fund in 2024. President Trump said on Truth Social that, quote, crooked Nancy Pelosi and her very interesting husband beat every hedge fund in 2024. In other words, these two very average minds beat all of the super geniuses on Wall Street, thousands of them. It's all inside information. Is anybody looking into this? She is a disgusting degenerate who impeached me twice on no grounds and lost. How are you feeling now, Nancy? The president also took a shot at her in front of the press. Take a listen to this.
You know, Nancy Pelosi became rich by having inside information. She made a fortune with her husband, and I think that's disgraceful. So in that sense, I'd like it, but I'd have to really see I study these things very carefully, and this just happened. So I'll take a look at it. But conceptually, I like it. And what I do think is Nancy Pelosi should be investigated, because she has the highest return of anybody practically in the history of Wall Street, save a few. How did that happen? It happened by she knows exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be announced. She buys stock, and then the stock goes up after the announcement's made. And she ought to be investigated.
Let's bring in David and Terrence for discussion. Terrence, I mean, if I was investing in the stock market, I don't, but if I was, I would just look and see what Nancy Pelosi is doing and follow her. I mean, it's crazy that that this hasn't been investigated up until this point.
That would be a good strategy, but unfortunately, we typically don't find out until too late what she may have invested in, and that's largely been. And again, this is fact. She's gotten information and she's made a move, and then we later find out, oh, well, that's why she may have made that move, and that's why she profited. But if you're able to real-time track what she's doing, it probably would be a good investment strategy. But this is just, in general, I think, a good idea, and it's something that's really been discussed for many years now, not allowing lawmakers or their loved ones, family members, to invest, because the reality is they are making decisions, and they do have information that the rest of the public may not have as immediate access to, and that information can in real time affect stocks and affect various investments. And so I think it's probably a reasonable move, David, to limit how much access lawmakers have to trading, because they do have an unfair advantage. That's just the reality of it, David.
No doubt about that. And by the way, Emily, you're in luck. If you go to X and type in Nancy Pelosi stock tracker, they do exactly that. 1.2 million.
Is it in real time, David, or is it?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know, but I will tell, and I can't name names, but I know of some folks that I know well that get the stuff in real time. What I mean by that, I don't mean like insider trading stuff. I'm talking about like literally there are websites devoted to this. Like if you just type in Nancy Pelosi stock trading, they follow her every move, and it's pretty, I don't know about in real time, but it's close to it. So that's what a lot of people do. That's what a lot of people do. So, there's your stock trip insider trading tip for the day, everybody. Oh, and by the way, I just did some research. I know, receipts again, but this time it actually has numbers on them. Did you know, and this is called according to Quiver Quant, which actually tracks Nancy Pelosi stocks, and it's not conservative or liberal, it just does the data research. Since 2014, the S&P 500 has gone up 238%, the S&P, since 2014, 11 years. 238%. Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, their stocks have gone up in the S&P that they've picked 720%. So there you go. So this idea that she did this in 2024 and we got to look into this and all of that, this has been going on for a very long time, yo. So I'm just saying that's it.
It sounds like there's over a decade of fraud here that needs to be investigated. Big yikes on that. But coming up, we are headed down to Wall Street for the opening bell. So more stock info for you guys. There's going to be some insight on how to hold on to your hard-earned dollars with some common sense. We'll be back with more American Sunrise in just 2 minutes.
Welcome back, everyone. You're looking at the White House because President Trump will be hosting a news conference at the top of the hour, laying out his plan for cleaning up Washington, D.C., specifically cleaning up when it comes to crime and homelessness. We're hearing that some FBI agents have already been deployed onto the streets of the nation's capital, and there's the potential that some military assets, specifically with the National Guard, could be deployed to the streets of Washington, D.C. as well. We'll have live coverage here on Real America's Voice the moment the president takes the podium. In the meantime, we're getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I can tell you that so far, so good. The Dow, S&P 500, and the NASDAQ are up in pre-market trading. That's a good sign for those of you who will be investing on any of those indices. We'll take you there to New York and the New York Stock Exchange for the opening bell here in short order. But first, let's get you back over to David. Good morning.
By the way, I've got the latest Nancy Pelosi picks for today. Here they are, everybody. No, I don't have those yet. All right, those will come in later. Time for our daily dose of dollars and common sense. We have American Sunrise Early Edition host and the guy behind the Jake's Takes Substack. That would be Jake Novak. Jake, we'll get to Pelosi in a second because I know you got some stuff to say about that. But China is out with an accusation right now that sounds too ridiculous to acknowledge. But apparently Wall Street kind of has to respond to this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is incredible. China, which has been ripping off everyone's intellectual property, especially ours here in the United States for years, has come out with a clear distraction projection statement this morning or overnight saying they're not so sure they can allow NVIDIA's H20 new AI chips sold in the country because, get this, those chips might be used to spy on the Chinese government.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Honestly, what a joke. In fact, those chips going into China were much more of a concern for us that China would steal the technology from those chips, and they had to make a deal with President Trump just now to give 15% of all the revenues of those sales back to the U.S. government as a way so the government has a little bit more money to be able to enforce and make sure our secrets aren't sold. I mean, this is a classic accuse your opponents of what you're doing to them and say that they're doing the same thing. It's so nauseating to hear this, but there's actual people, there must be people in China, big country, there's probably people who believe this. What a crock.
A crock and a pot calling the kettle black, too, by the way. All right, that'd be a crock pot, by the way. But anyhow, that's a separate issue. All right, Jake, there's one fashion craze that's getting hit hard by investors right about now. So tell us about it. And by the way, please don't tell me this is the bell-bottom gold lane pants that I do wear regularly. I may even be wearing them now, but I can't confirm or deny, Jake.
You are safe, David. But speaking of Crocs, it's Crocs that is the fashion statement. Listen, I don't know about you. I don't mind seeing Crocs on kids. But when I see Crocs on adult men in the winter or any other time of the year, it rubs me the wrong way. I can't say it. So Crocs have been really, really having a harder time over the past year. Their shares are down 42% for the year. They took a big hit on Thursday, and they're going to try to blame the tariffs. They're going to try, but like electric vehicles, the demand for Crocs has been going down. I hope demand among men 50 and older is going down. I mean, I just cannot stand seeing that on adult men. I'm sorry, that is certainly my bias there. But anyway, Crocs is in trouble. They're going to try to blame the tariffs and look for other companies that are losing their popularity to try to blame tariffs as a way to excuse themselves. But I think Crocs overstepped. It should have been just for kids. Please keep it at the kids.
Yes, please. And it's usually liberal men, let's be honest. And I hope that when President Trump comes out at 10 a.m., that he actually bans inside Washington, D.C., Crocs and skinny jeans. I don't think there's any question about that. All right. Jake, we mentioned this earlier. Let's talk about Nancy Pelosi. Obviously, she's got some issues. She's got a lot of money also about everything going on with her stock. So apparently you got these incredible run of good investments that she's had, but how can we get in on this, Jake? Come on, Jake. Give us the I don't want to call it the insider trading tip of the day, but please give us some sort of tip.
I mean, David, you were telling viewers in the last segment to go follow something on X. I mean, I got something much easier for you. There is an ETF, an exchange-traded fund that you can invest in that absolutely tracks as close to as in real time as they can Nancy Pelosi's investments. Its ticker symbol is NANC. It's run by the folks at Unusual Whales, who also, by the way, have an X account that looks into all this kind of stuff. But it is up 11% so far this year, and it closed, David, at a 52-week high on Friday. I think that's why President Trump chose this weekend to take a shot at Nancy and Paul Pelosi. That's not a coincidence, at least in my opinion. And by the way, you can all do it that way. Now, listen, they're up 11% for the year. That's compared to the Dow, that's only up 3% for the year. So they're doing pretty well. And again, you don't even have to bother to follow it. They'll do it for you.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi. God bless her. She's just making Americans' lives so much better. All right. Thanks, T. Thanks. I called you T. Thanks, Jay. J and T. All right. Sounds like a road show. Time for T-Bates in Denver, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
NANC. Okay, I'm going to see if this might work. By the way, I feel a little attacked over the whole Crocs thing. I actually wear Crocs under my suit sometimes. I do wear Crocs, and they're comfortable to me. Anyway, we're getting ready for the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. You hear the applause, which means the bell is going to ring here in short order, and then we'll get a better idea. Excuse me. Then we'll get a better idea of how the markets are looking. So you hear the bell there. That means the markets are now officially open, and let's see how things are looking. Our board generally looking pretty good. The S&P 500, as you can see, the NASDAQ and the Dow Jones are all up right now. There's really only one blemish on our screen. So trading, or this day of trading, this first day of trading of the week, starting off on a pretty good note. If you're going to be investing, hopefully all works well. And if you're going to be investing in that ETF, as you just heard, that tracks some of Nancy Pelosi's investments, hopefully that works out for you as well. So here's a question for you. Is the continued divide between Trump and the Federal Reserve putting us behind the curve yet again? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time? Or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown? And what does all of this ultimately mean for your savings? Well, you may want to consider diversifying into gold through the Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. The Birch Gold Group makes it incredibly easy, though, for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or you can just buy some gold outright and keep it in your safe at home. First, get educated though. The Birch Gold Group will send you a free information kit on gold. All you have to do is text the word America to the number 989898. Again, just text the word America to the number 989898. Consider diversifying your portion of your savings into gold. That way, if the Fed can't stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Up next here on American Sunrise, Lone Star State Democrats are anywhere but deep in the heart of Texas as they're still on the run after stalling a redistricting vote. We've got the latest on their whereabouts and how much trouble they're in. That's next as American Sunrise continues.
Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. Thanks for joining us this morning. We invite you, by the way, to join the conversation on Getter, Rumble, go into YouTube, check out the chat there as well. Time now to take the political pulse of America. The beat today, President Trump has been making some major upgrades to the White House, from a full Rose Garden renovation, installing huge new flagpoles, and now, of course, plans to build a ballroom. But do Americans support Trump's White House renovations? Well, according to the latest YouGov poll, there are some mixed reviews. 37% strongly disapprove. 10% say they somewhat disapprove of the changes. On the flip side, 14% strongly approve of the president's upgrades to the People's House, and 17% somewhat approve. Let's bring in Emily and Terrence. Guys, what do you think? Emily, we should point out, by the way, that the ballroom isn't going to cost taxpayers anything. It's going to run $200 million, but will be funded through a combination of donations, right, from President Trump and other private donors. So your take, Emily.
Yeah, I think I would be in the category of somewhat disapprove. I don't like change. I really love tradition. When I saw what he did to the Rose Garden, I was like, oh, that is so disappointing. But you know what? He's trying to leave behind a legacy. I mean, he's been adding a whole bunch of things to the White House, adding some gold here and there, giving it a little bit of a Mar-a-Lago vibe, I suppose. You know, like I said, somewhat disapprove, but it's just my opinion. You know, it's his house. He's living there.
Wait, can I follow? I'd like to follow up on that, if you don't mind.
There you go,
if you don't mind. You say somewhat disapprove. Why so? I'm just curious as to what you don't like about it.
Like I said, I just don't like change. I like upholding tradition.
But what about the actual, like, decor? So it's not about the decor, it's just about the change. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think we needed to put pavement down on the Rose Garden and tables and stuff. You know, that was where all the press conferences were. Brought out chairs for reporters. It's just going to look a little different moving forward.
Okay.
So I'm kind of on the fence about this as well. I don't approve, but I also don't disapprove. I think the benefit is it doesn't cost the American taxpayer anything. The fact that President Trump is quite literally invested in it himself, I think there's something to be said about that, and I'm sure it's probably going to be called the Trump Room or something like that. But the fact that he's investing in it himself and making sure that the American taxpayer doesn't have to pay it, I'm okay with that. I will also say this. I think there are many more important things that I'd like the president to focus on, and I do think that he's largely doing this. I just want to make sure that any project around the White House doesn't become a distraction, that it's just something that he can maybe pawn off on someone else. He can put out the idea. They handle that. I want the president to focus on running the country.
Yeah. He's a builder, though. You know, I mean, it makes sense. I know why he's doing this. I get it. I also think he can he obviously can multitask. And this is personal for him, right? I mean, this is what he does for a living. So that's why we saw him on the roof the other day. And I like the flagpoles. There he is on the roof. I love the flagpoles. I think that's great. I think the ballroom is a really smart idea. We don't have any sort of majestic room to do anything really important in. And the Rose Garden's just okay. I'm kind of with Emily on that. I mean, you know, not so much because of the change aspect. I'm okay with change. I just think it looks a little, oh gosh, am I going to say it? A little too country club-ish, a little too Mar-a-Lago-ish. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, let's just say the quiet part out loud. I mean, one thing we have to be here is authentic. Let's just be ourselves and just say it, you know, and that's the truth. And I've been in the Rose Garden. I've interviewed President Trump there, and it's just such a beautiful setting. And really now it's kind of like,
Well, it did make for a funny moment on the roof when he was looking at all of the renovations. So we got that out of it.
That's true. Yeah. Then again, I'm not a fashionista or a decorous, exceptional guy. Okay. Oh, do we want to take a look, by the way, at a live picture? I'm sorry. They told me that earlier, but I'm sorry. I had squirrel in the headlights there. There it is. The Brady room, the press briefing room, James Brady room, excuse me. President Trump will be there shortly. Caroline Leavitt will be there, but not speaking. It'll be President Trump speaking about Washington, D.C. and how he's going to clean things up. We're going to bring it to you. Let me look at the time. In about 21 minutes. It's coming. Don't worry. All right, changing gears now to the latest on those Texas Democrats who are still on the run. For an update, let's welcome to American Sunrise Texas State Representative Wes Virdal. Wes, give us the latest. I mean, I understand you're going to convene again today at the legislature with a special session. We have Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton asking the Texas Supreme Court, to remove some of these Democrats from office or give them like this 48-hour warning to return. So what are you hearing? What's the latest? Good morning to you.
Hey, thanks for having me on. So what I'm hearing right now is that the Democrats are still not going to return. You know, something to point out is we are paid by the day to be there. And the fact that they're not there is very disappointing. You know, any other job, if we don't show up for it, we get fired. I think that option should be on the table. And I think that they should start losing seniority also when they're not there.
So I hear you, and I realize that the sexy part of this story is that the redistricting bill is being held up. But I think the real grassroots, the real effect is that folks in those flooded areas there in Texas aren't getting the help that they need. You know, these are communities that literally are trying to rebuild, and you know, these Democrats going AWOL basically is holding up the relief for those folks. To me, that's the most egregious part of all of this. And again, I'm not a Texan, but from the outside looking in, just as a humanitarian, that's the most egregious part.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I actually, Kerrville is part of my district, you know, and that's the county that we lost over 100 people in that flood. And the fact that the Democrats aren't there to help us get the legislation passed, we need funding for those areas. We have massive infrastructure damage, and we need to deal with real regulation to see if we can help prevent something like this in the future. So the fact that they're not there for that is extremely disappointing.
And if I can just follow up on that really quickly, I'm sorry, Emily, but put into perspective what every day means to the folks there in Kerrville of not getting those resources, not getting that aid. Put into perspective for us so that we really can understand what not having that money, what not having that sort of legislation in place to help means for you guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hear it over and over again from people in there in Kerr County, which is that, you know, they feel like they're being left in the dark right now because they need to rebuild their lives. They're waiting in limbo while we're waiting on the Democrats to return. So it's incredibly frustrating, and I hope my peers will show back up and do the job that we agreed to do, that we promised our constituents to do.
You know, I do want to switch gears here for a moment here. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, she's been taking aim at Illinois lately, calling out Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for what she describes as protecting dangerous illegal migrant criminals. Noem says U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers have arrested criminals who would still be on the streets if Pritzker and Johnson had their way. Weigh in on this for a moment. What is your take?
Yeah, so it's not complicated to me. You look at the Democrats, there's hypocrisy running everywhere. One is it appears that they support illegal immigration, and two, they ran to a state where you actually have some of the worst redistricting ever done. So, you know, gerrymandering is a problem, and they've done it in some of the worst places around.
So let me ask you this, Wes. How is this going to end in terms of the redistricting? I mean, Greg Abbott, the governor there, is saying, I'm going to call special session after special session. So ultimately, these Democrats are going to have to come back. And quite frankly, you know, at this point, I'm sure they're aligned to their constituents is we're doing this for democracy, yada, yada, yada. But at some point, you got to appear in your district. And at that point, you got a civil arrest warrant or a civil warrant out for your arrest. So how does this end exactly? How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is the governor's going to call another special session, and we're going to keep coming back. And the reality is a lot of us legislators are normal working class people. And so where I need to be at work, actually taking care of a business and helping my family and pay the bills, you know, we're not there. And every day the Democrats are not there. They're not only hurting us, they're hurting themselves, and they're hurting the taxpayers who are paying tax dollars for this special session to be in session. But I think the governor's going to call another special session, and I think he will keep doing it until the Democrats return.
All right, I want to bring your attention to this. A big haul. ICE has arrested about 350 gang members in Houston. This is over the last 6 months or so. It happened in the first 6 months of the Trump administration, just for context. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers in Houston say they've arrested specifically 356 illegal foreign nationals who are confirmed gang members. That's combined with them being in this country illegally. The numbers, as you know, there in Texas are staggering. Can you see a difference as a lawmaker there in Texas, as someone who lives in a border state, when from the Trump administration coming into office and really being able to turn things around? Are you able to see a marked difference?
Just day to day, I can't see a difference right now, but you talk to a lot of other people. And so I live probably about 3 or 4 hours from the border, and I can't see a difference. I think we're seeing a difference some in the drivers. We have a real problem with people jumping in semi trucks that can't speak English and are from Mexico. And I think that we're seeing a decrease in that. But I appreciate ICE, and we need to keep getting every illegal immigrant out of here until we have no more in our country.
Absolutely. And over the past year, ICE has had 700% of an increase on the attacks on them as they've been going around and trying to do the Trump administration's work. Talk to us a little bit more about that, the challenges that ICE is facing and the support that they need.
Yeah. So those guys are having unfortunately, they're being targeted. They're being doxing. The real issue here is we need to make sure that we are punishing those who are doxing the ICE agents. So, I don't particularly like ICE wearing masks. I think if we were in, let's say Joe Biden were still the president and he had agents wearing masks, we would have a problem with that. So there is concern about that, and what precedent do we set where public servants are wearing masks. I do have concern there, but back to it, I think that the real issue is that the people who are targeting ICE are not being punished the way they should, and we need to increase the penalties on them and make sure that they are fully aware there are consequences for what they're doing.
Absolutely. A lot of work to still be done. Representative Wes Virdell, thank you so much for your time and joining us on American Sunrise.
Thank you all for having me.
All right. We have so much more for you after the break. Stay with us.
Here's a live look at the press briefing room there at the White House. President Trump expected to show up here within the next 12 minutes or so. He's going to be talking about his plan to clean up Washington, D.C., both from the perspective of crime as well as homelessness. He's already deployed about 120 FBI agents to the streets of the nation's capital, and he's also considering bringing in the National Guard. But he'll, of course, explain all of that and lay it out for us here within the next 12 minutes or so. We'll take you there live the moment the president takes the podium. In the meantime, if you're feeling out of sorts and unhealthy, you may want to head over to sacredhumanhealth.com and discover the incredible benefits of their grass-fed beef liver capsules. Grass-fed beef liver is one of the greatest concentrations of nutrients you can add to your diet. It plays a vital role in supporting your heart, brain, and immune system while also boosting energy and improving overall health. Sacred Human's beef liver capsules offer a natural alternative to synthetic multivitamins, providing nutrients in a form that your body knows how to use efficiently. Many customers are thrilled with the noticeable boosts in energy and vitality that they've experienced already. Visit sacredhumanhealth.com today. Use the promo code SUNRISE for 10% off and explore their full range of all-natural supplements such as sleep, collagen, immunity, and magnesium with vitamin D, which are all designed to help you on your path to optimal health. That's sacredhumanhealth.com. Use the promo code PATRIOT as well for 10% off. Joining us now is the CEO of Sacred Human, Trevor Comstock. Trevor, good morning, my friend.
Terrence, how you doing?
Doing all right. All right, so I'm a little ashy. You might be able to tell here, but I hear that you guys have some moisturizer.
Yeah. Happy to give the rundown of that. Of course, we're known for our grass-fed beef liver, like you mentioned, but I'm really excited to share our newest product with you guys. But we just launched our handmade whipped tallow and raw manuka honey moisturizer, and it's a total game changer for your skin. So we actually keep selling out since we launched last Friday, but our team is doing an amazing job of keeping production going. So we don't have to list it as out of stock on our website, which is great. So again, we're still rocking and rolling and good on that front. But just a little background on it. This moisturizer is made with just 2 ingredients, which is the 100% American grass-fed and finished beef tallow, and then the raw manuka honey. So that's it. There's no preservatives, there's no fillers or synthetic junk. And for those that don't know, tallow is really amazing because it's almost identical to the natural oils that your skin produces. So it absorbs much more deeply and actually nourishes your skin instead of just sitting on the top of your skin, which is great. And then on top of that, it's loaded with vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, K, which your skin needs to stay healthy and radiant. So then we just paired it, like I mentioned, with the raw manuka honey, which acts as a natural antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and healing remedy. So it also helps, do things like heal irritated skin, reduce redness, and lock in moisturizer without clogging your pores, which is pretty amazing. And then, just to give you a little background on how it stacks up against other moisturizers and kind of why we created it. But compared to most commercial skin creams on the market, they may be effective, but most of the time they're usually just full of synthetic ingredients like the alcohols, the fragrances, the cheap fillers, and a lot of ingredients that you can't even pronounce. But those, again, the issue with those is they can actually damage your skin barrier over time. Although, like I mentioned, they may be effective short term, but again, our formula is just clean and simple. It just has the 2 ingredients. It doesn't have any synthetic junk in it. And it really is just whipped into a smooth texture that you can easily apply to your face or body. Okay. And again, it's also intended for both men and women. So again, like I mentioned, great for things like eczema, reducing redness, daily skin hydration, and you can put it anywhere: face, hands, body, neck, wherever you want to intend.
Indulge the nosy part of me, if you don't mind, because you guys have such unique products, and the names, of course, are unique, and people kind of say, oh, that's interesting, I want to find out more. But talk to us a little bit about what research and development is like there. What's R&D like there at your company? Because, again, what you're selling is so unique.
Yeah, 100%. So I've come on the show a few times, but we kind of always stand by our promise to not only make sure that everything is always produced right here in the USA, but all of our products are third-party lab tested as well. So whether it's the supplements or even the moisturizer, everything takes months and months, sometimes up to 6 months, just to come up with the formula. And then on top of that, we have to go through product testing to ensure there's no heavy metals or other ingredients that shouldn't be in there. But again, we don't use any. If you look at any of our products, we don't use any fillers in any of our products that are not natural. If we do have to put a filler in there, it's something like an organic turmeric or a ginger. Whereas, if you go to your local Walgreens or go on Amazon, you'll see a lot of supplements, for example, that come off as very healthy, but then you look at the label and they still contain seed oils, chemicals, and preservatives that really aren't doing your health any favor. So again, our promise and kind of why we created Sacred Human in the first place was to break away from that big corporate mold, where usually they just mass produce everything in China, try to advertise it as healthy with, maybe an effective product, but again, still containing a ton of artificial ingredients. We don't do that. We make sure that everything's produced right here in the USA, and we only use ingredients that we trust, and then we test everything. So it does take a while to roll out everything, and it's why we don't have a ton of products on our website. But there's more to come, but it does take us a while to get rocking and rolling with specific products.
Absolutely. Trevor, we appreciate the time, my friend. Looking forward to getting some of that moisturizer and have me glistening on the TV screen. Appreciate you, my friend.
And before I forget real quick, you can use code SUNRISE at checkout if you just go to sacredhumanhealth.com, but that'll get you 10% off any one-time order.
All right. See, there you go, folks. You're up early. You get the hookup. Thanks so much, Trevor. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Terrence. Appreciate it.
All right. Remember, head on over to sacredhumanhealth.com and use the promo code SUNRISE that you just heard there for 10% off. Trevor Comstock joining us here. We're back in a moment.
Breaking news from Real America's Voice.
Welcome back. President Trump is slated to speak on his plans for Washington, D.C. any minute now. We have a live look of the press briefing room. Looks very packed in there for this announcement this morning. Let's bring in David and Terrence for more. David, you've been sharing a lot of personal insight. You're there in Washington, D.C., so I know you're probably very excited to hear what the president has planned.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We should also point out that, let's be clear, he's going into the press briefing room. And so what does that mean? That means it's not just going to be about Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
That's going to be the main reason. But yeah, exactly, T. You know the deal. Get ready for an hour and a half to 2 hours of must-see TV. And it's going to be about 10 to 15 to 20, 25 to 30 topics of conversation that will come up. So there's going to be a lot of news. And I'm not quite sure at the end of the day if D.C. is going to be the big story that comes out of this, depending on what he says. Yeah, you're shaking your head in agreement, I would assume, or something along those lines.
I am, absolutely. Because the reality is, if I was in the press room, D.C., yeah, that's interesting, but I want to know about Friday. Is Zelensky going to be there? What is your plan?